SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
We are Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Eben Janssen. This show is always live, broadcast from the studios right here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we're live between 9 and 12 every weekday morning, bringing you all the latest updates overnight and what's happening live in South Africa. Of course, big day for students today. Obviously standing by with a quick update for us on the march to the Union Building. But let's go to Anine to see what the students have been talking about on social media.
Well, good morning, Eben. As you've said, the Fees Must Fall movement goes to the Union Buildings today, but we'll take a look also at the global impact the social media campaign has had. It's also Bok Friday, and we see if Twitter thinks if the Springboks can beat the All Blacks.
We can always beat the All Blacks. That's why we're the Springboks. Our question of the day today deals with exactly that. We ask of you the Boks date with destiny with the All Blacks at Rugby World Cup 2015. Send us your messages of support. Send us your comments. We'd love to put it up later to send some good vibes to the Springboks in London, Twickenham, where they'll meet the All Blacks tomorrow. Today, though, it's the Union Building. Let's go to Elvis to tell us what's happening in the capital.
The nationwide Student Fees Must Fall protest shows no sign of letting up ahead of today's meeting between the President, Jacob Zuma, and the students. Voters in East Africa's most populous country, Tanzania, head to the polls. And thousands rally in Athens over tax hikes and pension cutbacks. Those are all your headlines, but first let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in your sports news. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis, and good morning to you too at home. It's a big weekend, and this is what we've got in store for you in the sports. In the next bulletin, Lawrence Sipaka, former Springbok prop, joins us to preview the final before the final. The semi-final match between South Africa and New Zealand at Twickenham tomorrow. And staying with rugby, the Currie Cup final is upon us as hot favourites Golden Lions look to wrest the title from defending champions Western Province at Emirates Park in the heart of Johannesburg. And South Africa's under-17s get a draw against North Korea in their Group E clash at the FIFA World Cup in Chile. And India, of course, has levelled a 5-match ODI series against the Proteas at 2-2 after a 35-run victory in Chennai yesterday. And that, in a nutshell, is what you've got in the sports. At 10:20, make sure you stick around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you very much, Kendall. Let's now start off with your top story this morning. Students from various universities will gather at Burgers Park in the Pretoria CBD before marching to the Union Buildings this morning. Several streets are expected to be closed. SABC's Sipho Steerman is at the gathering point. A very good morning to you, Sipho, and welcome. Can you tell us what is happening there?
Very good morning to you, Elvis. Well, yeah, we are here at Burgers Park in Pretoria, where thousands of students are expected to be gathered here for the Fees Must Fall march to the Union Buildings. So far, we've only seen 2 buses of students coming through. The crowd is pretty thin at this point in time, but of course, we expect that to change later on as students from various institutions, in fact, across the country will be coming through. We know that other provinces are also sending their students here to represent them for the march to the Union Buildings.
Now, Sipho, how many people is there at the moment? You've mentioned 2 buses thus far. Does it seem like this is going to be a big one?
Well, we may have just a handful at this point in time, but I mean, the atmosphere is great as it is. Remember, the call time was 10 o'clock this morning, and it's still an hour to go till 10 o'clock, and we've already seen people here. I think that indicates the amount of interest into this protest, and we are certainly going to see a whole lot more. And I see that security is also taking this matter seriously. There's a lot of Metro Corps around here who are going to be helping to guide the march to the Union Buildings.
What are the students saying? Are they excited about today's march?
Well, students basically, I mean, I've been covering especially particularly the University of Pretoria side of the protest, and when I spoke to them throughout the week, they've said they are of course happy that the president is finally addressing this issue himself. However, they're saying that they will not accept anything from anyone except for 0%. And I think that what we saw yesterday in Johannesburg at Luthuli House, where the students did not even allow Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, to speak. I mean, that says a lot, because Gwede Mantashe is a senior politician in the country. Some even call him the Prime Minister of South Africa. But the students were uncompromising, saying that 0% fees increase is what we want and nothing else.
Sipho, you'll give us an update a little bit later as we continue this broadcast to give you a sort of feel of what's happening around the country, especially with the march in Pretoria today. Now, the Fees Must Fall movement's final destination today is, of course, the Union Buildings, where the president is expected to meet the student leaders. Our reporter Tumahole Moletsani is there waiting for the arrival of the students. Tumahole, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Well, the mood here is still relatively quiet in Pretoria. We are now at the South Lawn here at the Union Buildings, and there's a very, very heavy police presence. In fact, police officers are at the moment in parade being addressed by commanders and senior police officials about the strategies that they will adopt today to try and keep law and order, to basically avoid a repeat of what we saw when the students marched on Parliament. And the police had to then intervene to prevent the students from charging the legislature. This is something that police officers are very, very conscious of here, and are being told that the law and order must be something that would be maintained at all costs. Of course, they do not want to see a situation where there are clashes, because above all, I think the officers here that I spoke to certainly were saying that they are also sympathetic of the students' cause. However, they are under obligation to keep law and order, as this is, of course, the seat of Parliament and the seat of government here in the capital, Pretoria. Apart from that, it is still relatively quiet here on the south lawns of the Union Buildings. I spoke earlier to a handful of students who have been trickling in, and some of them are coming from Mamelodi in the northeast of the capital city, and they are basically saying that they have come all this way because they feel that this movement has been a long time coming, and the exclusion that they are experiencing as students from previously underprivileged backgrounds is something that is infringing on their right to education. And they say they are coming here to bring their appeals to government to say enough is enough. They cannot afford to have a free increment that has been rejected by the student movement. They are saying that they want this process to be expedited, because while the momentum of the Fees Must Fall campaign is sweeping across the country, and the euphoria of students basically taking their demands to the doorstep of government, we saw how the students marched to Luthuli House, where they took their demands to the ruling ANC. They are saying that they are still keeping their eye on the prize, and the fact that they have to write exams within the next few weeks. This is what they are most conscious of, and they hope that by rising up and taking their demands to government, they will still have time to have their demands met and focus on writing their NDA final exams. With that, it's back to you in the studio.
Tumahole Moletsani, we'll come back to you a little bit later to give us an update on that story unfolding at the Union Buildings as the students walk towards the Union Buildings a little bit later. They will start off at 10 o'clock, as we just heard from Sipho Stierman there from Burgers Park. We're also trying to get hold of our other reporter, Griselda Lewis, who's on the bus with the students. We'll bring you that a little bit later. But right now, it's over to Eben to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, Elvis, it's a big day for students. They'll be marching to the seat of power, the Union Buildings. Now, one student will be absent from this march, this protest. He's 19-year-old Tsepo Masike from Mahikeng in the Northwest Province. He was forced to abandon his studies due to a lack of funding.
An aspiring engineer, Masike was one of the top 20 matriculants in the Ngakamudirmulema district last year. He obtained 5 distinctions, passing physics with 86% and maths with 88%. A bright future beckoned. He enrolled for a Bachelor of Science degree at Wits, but dropped out because he couldn't foot the hefty bills. Now stranded at home with debt over 20,000 rand hanging over his head.
It is very unfortunate that I didn't get any sponsorship. So during the period when I was supposed to start writing on March, I had to deregister because I had no textbooks, no study material. I was struggling to travel from Soweto to the university every day.
The family of 6 depends on the grandmother's social grant.
We were expecting that Tsepo will finish his studies and be able to take care of his siblings, including his mother, who is unemployed.
Masike helps pupils with maths and science at his alma mater. His accord calls for free education. Despite passing his matric with flying colors at this under-resourced school, Masike says his academic ambitions were dealt a blow by what he terms exorbitant tuition fees at institutions of higher learning. SABC News, Mahikeng.
Now, for a little bit more on the story, let's speak to the young man himself. His name is Tsepo Masike from Mahikeng. He's 19 years old. He was forced to abandon his studies due to a lack of funding, as you saw in that piece. But let's talk to Tsepo himself. Good morning to you, Tsepo. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, good morning, sir. Thank you.
Tsepo, now today the students are marching to the union buildings in the capital, Pretoria. Would you have joined that march if you were still studying?
Yes, I would have joined the march because I think it's a great movement. Many people have been disadvantaged because of fees.
Tell us your story a little bit, your personal story. Just give us a little bit more detail. You've now been forced to deregister, I understand.
Yes, early this year I was registered with Wits University, but because I did not have any sponsorship of any kind, I had to deregister because I could not further my studies with the debt.
And tell us a little bit about the debt. Now, how deep in the hole were you?
I was at Wits for about a month, but when I deregistered on March, I was liable for 20%, which is somewhere close to 20,000.
That's a lot of money in anybody's language. Now, I want to take you to what has happened this week. We've seen protests outside Parliament in Cape Town on all the campuses have now joined in around the country. The students are united, it seems, against fees. What is your assessment, though, overall of the Fees Must Fall campaign?
Sorry?
What do you think of the overall Fees Must Fall campaign we've seen around the country so far?
Okay, as I've said before, I think it's a great movement. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Tsepo Masike, he's a little bit shy from Mahikeng. He says 20% is what he was due to pay in the first month, 20,000 rand. His family, well, they simply just couldn't. They simply couldn't pay that money, so he's had to deregister himself. You can see it's affected him quite a bit. Now, the students, well, they are taking their protest. Fees must fall to the highest authority today. They're in the capital. Hundreds of students are on their way to participate in a student march to the union building. Students plan to protest there ahead of President Jacob Zuma's meeting with management and student leaders with regards to the increases we've seen. Now, our reporter Griselda Lewis, well, she's always in the thick of it. She's on a bus right now with students. A very good morning to you, Griselda. Are you there?
Well, that's right. A very good morning to you, Eben.
Griselda, you're in the midst of it right there. Tell us about the mood amongst the students. What have they been telling you until now?
Well, Eben, I can tell you many of these students came to Wits University as early as 4 o'clock this morning, hoping to get a spot on one of these buses to the union buildings. There's about 20 of these buses here at the Wits University campus that are expecting to leave in the next few minutes. As you can see, struggle songs, placards as well. This placard here reading, their human rights, is to challenge their very humanity. That's certainly the sentiments that we're getting from these students. You would know that they've been singing and protesting with one voice, calling that in 2016 there should be a 0% fees increase. So they're taking it to the union buildings this morning, hoping that President Jacob Zuma, in his meeting with the leaders of the universities, student leaders, are able to come to some resolution to ensure that their demands are met. I'm going to move a bit through the bus at the moment. I'm going to ask our camera person, Tulo Monare, just to be very careful as we're moving a bit through the lines here. Let me speak to some of the young people and find out why it's so important for them to be on this bus to go to the union buildings. Good morning to you. What time did you wake up, and why is it important for you to be on this bus today to the union buildings?
Hi, Crisalda. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning, and the main reason is particularly because if tuition fees keep on increasing, we can't really right the wrongs of the past. If they increase, it's black people who are already poor, who can't afford to actually come to university. Situations are so bad here, but that we have students who sleep in libraries and can't even afford a meal for the day. So if you can't even afford to eat for the day, how can you ever afford to pay 50,000 on tuition alone? So I'm here to fight for the black child whose dignity has been lost because of poverty. This is why this is so important to me. Thank you.
All right, let me chat to some other students as well. Could ask our camera person, Tulo Monare, to come with us as well. Let me see young people who want to speak here. Guys, why is it so important for you guys to go to the union buildings today? Let me get this gentleman who's been very committed here this morning. I see you singing Tanzanian. You're saying that, what are you hoping that will come out of this meeting with President Jacob Zuma and executives from your university and many others, of course?
I think they are going to just say the fees will fall because, as you can see, the whole country is up on their feet. So they have to come up with something so that the country can settle down. Because if the country does not settle down, there are going to be a lot of trouble. So I think they will just settle down because they have to see this. Because we fought against apartheid so that we can have education. But now we are still fighting. So basically they are going to see that we have to settle down. We can't keep on standing up. The country is up on their feet. So we still want education. That's what we are looking for. That's what we are hoping to achieve that side.
How are you juggling this struggle together with your lessons as well? You've still got to write examinations. When are you able to study? How are you juggling? Is it early mornings, late nights? What's going on?
Okay, basically what we do, we strike during the day, but during the night we cross night at Solomon House. So it's no longer Senate House. We cross night that side. We help one another as students. So if we are doing education, we are one side, engineering one side. So we really start because we are dedicated. It's not that we just want to cause trouble around the country just because we don't want to learn. We really want to learn because at night we meet, we study, that we are brothers and sisters. So we help one another.
All right, certainly astounding to see. They're clapping hands. Clearly, this cause that they're fighting for, they're hoping that some kind of resolution will be found today in that between the head of state, President Jacob Zuma, as well as the executives from the various universities, and more importantly, student leaders who are saying that the fees must fall, a total 0% increase in 2016. But stay tuned to SABC News. We'll be broadcasting from a number of these buses. I've counted about 20 of them, and they're expected to leave Wits University in the next few minutes. So we'll keep on crossing to you as we en route from Wits University to the union buildings. We'll certainly bring you more sentiments as well from these students and exactly what they're expecting this outcome to be at the end of the day. It's back to you in studio for now.
Thank you very much to Crisalda Lewis, right in the thick of it as always. The one thing that's heartening, it looks like the students are very disciplined and very principled in what they're hoping to achieve today. Now, it's been a week that's been driven by social media hashtags, from the fees must fall hashtag to the national shutdown, Johannesburg must fall hashtags. Social media, and especially Twitter, proved to be a powerful weapon in this uprising against increased university fees across South Africa. Some have even compared it to the Arab Spring in the Middle East, although that's a bit of a stretch. And a few years ago, where social media also played its part as citizens forced those in power to listen to them. Now, to help us understand what role sites like Twitter and other social media platforms played this week in mobilizing students in the protests that we've seen. We are joined by the Managing Director of Media Monitoring Company, Roy Africa, Tonya Kuri. Good morning, Tonya. Always nice to have you with us.
Good morning, Evan. It's always great to be here. And what a week.
What a week. Now, Tonya, you know that I'm a very anti-slacktivism, the kind of activism where you just create a hashtag and you know, out of that nothing really happens for the greater good.
Yes.
But, you know, people take selfies and post it and, you know, look at me. It's that kind of world.
Yes.
This is a little bit different. For the first time, we've seen real activism unite underneath hashtags here in South Africa.
You're so right, Evan. Like, we've seen things like Bring Back Our Girls doing absolutely nothing at all, but Fees Must Fall has managed to unite campuses across the country, and the impact internationally is really big. I heard reports this morning from London and from the States about students also joining in solidarity across the world using exactly the same hashtag. So it's been a unifier, and it's got people on their feet.
Just show us the numbers here, because this is important, you know, in the sort of news sense, how this worked here in South Africa. Now, Fees Must Fall, news versus social. Oscar, of course, was in the news, and I think for the first time, Oscar has been kind of kicked off the agenda this week by this real pressing issue for young South Africans.
If you'd have asked me earlier this week what would be the biggest story, I'd have said Oscar Pistorius hands down.
Yeah.
And Fees Must Fall over almost this is a 7-day period. In news media, almost 50% of our coverage is coming under Fees Must Fall. But if we switch that to social media on the right of the screen, almost 75% of the coverage of our social media conversation is Fees Must Fall, dwarfing the Rugby World Cup with the semi-final coming up.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Dwarfing Oscar. And what is prominent is Blade and Zuma coming out of that data really strongly, specifically in news media and social media.
Now, the Higher Education Minister, Sir Blade and Zuma, has found himself kind of in the middle of the whole thing. I see he shows up periodically.
Yes.
What's the general sentiment around him then?
I think there's quite a few focuses coming out of the data. Blade and Zuma are really one of the very big ones. President Jacob Zuma, a big focus. I mean, 37% of the theme is focused on him, 32% on the ANC itself. And what's interesting is to see the ANC Must Fall hashtag being associated with the Fees Must Fall hashtag. Dlamini coming through there. The arrests so much smaller than the call for political intervention.
I wanted to ask you about that kind of what I call people jumping on the bandwagon.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of political parties suddenly this week all jump on the bandwagon.
Yes.
You know, everyone's taking pot shots at the ANC in this instance. The jumping on the bandwagon element of this on social media, we've seen the DA creating how much money they'll save everywhere, and they will make sure people get free education. In Parliament, we saw political parties jump up with slogans saying, we'll give free education. It's easy to say that. It's a different thing to live it, isn't it?
Well, isn't it? I mean, that's what's been told in the past as well. And look where we are today. So very easy to talk. It's very difficult to walk. And I think that sentiment is also coming through in social media.
Yeah.
It's almost been ignored, if you like.
Yeah.
It's more like, well, what are we doing right now?
Yeah.
And you know, Evan, how interesting it is. Every news station I turn on, every TV station I watch is all this story.
Yes.
But when you look at news media versus social media, news media comes in at less than 1% of the coverage of Fees Must Fall. The rest is all social. It's us talking on the ground.
Yes, and that's in a way how the world of media has changed. But and also it gives you the kind of platform to go global now.
Yes.
Just tell us about how this has played out. If we can come back and just look at how this has played out in the international media, this uprising that's happened in South Africa, this protest by young people. Tonya?
So, I mean, if we looked at the top 10 countries, obviously South Africa leader of the pack. On the right-hand side of the screen there, almost 50% of the coverage coming out of SA. But straight after them is the USA, the United Kingdom, Australia. I mean, it's global.
Yeah.
So global that if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, it's what we call a heat map.
Yes.
And here you can see, as it glows red, where the traffic is coming from. And it's literally a worldwide story.
Absolutely. It's incredible. That's the world of social media we live in now. Tonya, don't go away. Just stay in your seat. I want to go to Anine because Anine's got a lot of stuff. You know, Anine is sort of the grave digger in the social media world. She goes there and she unearths all the sort of gems that's doing around, all the hashtags and pictures and videos. And you've got quite a bit today, Anine.
Well, Evan, like you've just said, it's all coming together for the Fees Must Fall movement today. But we're not actually particularly seeing the Fees Must Fall hashtag trending this morning. We're seeing the union building trending this morning because we know thousands of students will be marching to the buildings this morning to be addressed by the president. But Eben, like we've also just mentioned, it has had a global impact. If we can start with the tweets that have been sent, we can look at New York. Tomorrow, actually, posters have been tweeted. There we go, for a gathering in New York. So definitely, like we said, the opposite of slacktivism. People aren't just adding their voices from across the world. They are actually organizing gatherings for this movement. Then we can go on to London. Today we know thousands of students or students at least, are marching to the South African High Commission. That's the poster that's been shared on social media for those gathering in London. And then even down under, the University of Melbourne have tweeted photos in support of the hashtag.
Do we have activists in Australia, really?
Even we're all united in the world of social media. We can all unite around the same cause, and it just goes to show what a powerful weapon social media is, and this week has proved it to us. There we go, students of Melbourne, and then there we have them, they're also using that same hashtag, showing that they are supporting the South African students. And then even if we just take a look at this morning, that's Griselda. We just crossed to her a bit earlier. She's on that bus, tweeting from the bus, so you can follow her hashtag at Griselda Lewis to get the latest from what's happening this morning in that march to the union buildings.
Yeah, there you see the picture of the buses. Griselda, as always, she's right in the thick of it. We'll be crossing live to her periodically today as students are being ferried into the capital. Tonya, just to wrap it all up, what is your expectation then to go? Where is this going to go from today? The union buildings. Where is it going to go to?
I think we're looking at a media giant in any way. I mean, we've watched this type of story grow and grow, but this one has been, it's been quick and globally it's stretched so quickly that I expect by the end of the week there'll be nothing else on the charts. And I think, more importantly, it's going to make a difference.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Tonya Kuri is the Managing Director of Roy Africa. She always gives us the juice, what the trends are, what's happening on social media, what people are talking about. Thanks to Anine as well. Anine will be back with us a little bit later. Well, we're going to be talking about this throughout the fabric of the entire show today. The entire day on this channel, actually, we're going to be in the capital. We're going to give you the outcomes of the meetings of the President with student leaders and, of course, university management. Now, I can tell you thousands of students marched to the ANC headquarters yesterday in downtown Johannesburg to submit their memorandum of demand. Amongst other things, that was what they tabled. They said that the ruling party should look into curbing the salaries of university executives. That was one sentiment. The ANC vowed to communicate concerns and demands raised by university students to the President himself. That's our President Jacob Zuma and those responsible in government. Of course, these pictures have been doing the rounds on this very channel for the last 24 hours. I can tell you what was impressive for me on a personal note was that after the march, as they walked back, the students were actually clearing up the streets, picking up the rubbish and the rubble for me, which was a highlight to see that we are heading into a time of conscious activism. There's a greater good here at stake, and that is the future of education and the future, by default, of our children. Here's some of the tweets. The font is a little bit small. Maybe you can put it for me on the big screen so that my old eyes can read. There you go. Thank you, Johan. Fees must fall for all. Some of the most memorable placards I saw today. Don't tell my mom I think she's racist, says one. Wow. What a slogan that is. And there you have some of the other ones doing the rounds. There you have it. That picture reminds me of my youth when we used to protest back in the 80s in the streets. Black and white pictures of how we took our beatings. A peaceful protest that was. Look at that picture. Jerusalem Roth talks about outside the Tuli House, peaceful and purposeful. May the words lazy and entitled never be used on these kids again. Yes, of course, there's a lot of sentiment around that lazy and entitled students. They don't want to work. You heard about the young people on the bus. They're studying at night. They're forming study groups. At the university campuses at night because exam time is upon us. Let's hope that, the vast majority of students are taking the same heed. Time for us to take a break now. You're watching Newsroom right here on SABC News.
Najja mu TV kandaga nga ndi mu abaana batya babiri kinali tidi nga baali bezingira endira era bankobera ati endira dezingira abaana abo singa nali njire luuyi mbutufu nali nja kuvuira mwa bango mwana asooka yaida bulungi yona yasembayo yaidira magulu.
Uganda is struggling to enhance the health care. We have a high infant mortality because of pregnancy-related conditions.
The mission of Imaging the World is to place affordable ultrasound machines in the most rural health facilities. Philips has been involved in the project from the very beginning.
Omulala niwe iswa Livingstone Salung. Owokubiri nitenywa Wilson Kabali. Singa nali njire luuyi nga timaze kufuna kubona kativi. Nali nja kuvuira mwawo.
Innovation and you. Philips.
Yes, that's where we are today. The students are going to the union buildings. That's a big story. You're going to be able to watch all the best coverage on this channel. Of course, the other big story is the Springboks. Well, they've got a date with destiny tomorrow. Springbok coach Heineke Meyer has named an unchanged starting 15 to face New Zealand in the first Rugby World Cup semi-final. That's late on Saturday at Twickenham in London tomorrow. The only change to the matchday squad is at replacement lock, where Victor Matfield has now overcome his hamstring injury and takes over from Peter Steph du Toit, bringing even more experience to the bench for the Boks. Now, it's the first time since last November that Meyer has been able to name an unchanged starting lineup for back-to-back tests, and only the 6th time since his appointment in 2012. Now, Vincent Mofokeng is here to take us through the lineup quickly. He's with Gift. Gift has been the man who's gone out into the streets. I'll be with Gift and with Jody shortly, but Vinny, just take us through the Boks lineup, and what do you think are some of the high points to look out for tomorrow?
Well, Victor's inclusion on the bench gives us more experience there, and as we saw last weekend against Wales, when the replacements did very well towards the end of the match, this will be very crucial. His influence will also be pivotal against a strong New Zealand line-out. We're playing against the defending champions here and the top-ranked side in the world. But the current New Zealand side can also be regarded as arguably one of the best test teams ever. Lode Jager will undergo a late fitness assessment, after which a call on his availability will be made. If he can't play, Matfield will start with Peter Steph du Toit on the bench. Brian Abana will go head-to-head with Julian Sevilla in the first Rugby World Cup semi-final on Saturday. And the South African considers his all-black wing rival to be a global superstar. Sevilla's hat-trick of tries against France on Saturday took his tournament tally to 8, equaling the record of Habana. Now, if you can just show the squad there quickly so the people can see back at home the team that's playing, the forwards and the backs, please. All right. And New Zealander Joe Maloma, with 2 games to come, Conrad Smith described the Springboks as New Zealand's ultimate rival. In the 1995 final, many of the All Blacks were said to have food poisoning. Coach Laurie Mains claimed a waitress known as Susie had tampered with their water. The match ended 9-9 and went into extra time, where Joel Stransky kicked the winning drop goal. In one of sport's most iconic moments, Nelson Mandela, wearing a Springbok jersey, presented the William Webb Ellis Cup to South African captain Francois Pienaar. I'm joined in the studio by sports analysts. We are joined in the studio by sports analyst Jody Hendricks is here just to tell us exactly what was going on. But Evan, nobody saw the team there.
No, we unfortunately we missed that graphic. We couldn't get it up. We've got a bit of a technical problem there, Vince. But you know, that's the nature of live TV. Sometimes you just got to roll with it a little bit.
Roll with it.
I've got Jody and Gift here. They're with us, Jody. I know you've been with us almost every week here as we've been building up to this big match. I mean, you know, all the pleasantries are behind us. This is the match that's going to count, and this is the match that's going to gauge whether Heineke Meyer and the Boks have had a successful World Cup or not.
I think it's going to be the Boks' biggest test ever. We all know about the disappointment that started off with Japan, and the Boks has basically been playing knockout rugby ever since. But this is, for me, the game of the tournament, the game of the World Cup. I think the Boks have everything to prove. The All Blacks, it will be their game to lose. A lot of focus on Julian Sevilla. But for me, the All Blacks still have other 14 world-class players. They've got the best scrum half in the world. They've got the best fullback in the world. They've got Dan Carter. So I really think a mammoth task awaits the Springboks tomorrow.
Now, Vinny, where do you think this game's going to be won and lost as we watch that great try from the captain last week? They got us out of jail, really.
They got us out of jail there. Yeah, but the funny thing is we also got good, New Zealand also got good centres. And, you know, on our side, we've got inexperienced centres. But the wings are also going to, I think, Brana and Sevilla, they've got to give each other a nice go in this game. And, hey, I'm not so optimistic about this game.
You're not so optimistic. It's too late now, man. It's too late. This is do or die. It's a date with destiny, Jody. I wanted to ask you, you know, the last couple of years we've watched the Boks against the All Blacks. They've been very watchable affairs. They've been on the high felt, a couple of them, where the Boks have to score 4 tries. And we've seen the Boks playing a brand of rugby that's from a different planet almost. Fast-paced, running rugby. And the All Blacks always reciprocate with the same. Do you expect a fast-paced kind of game tomorrow?
I think if the Boks do that, they'll be playing right into the All Blacks' hands. I think we've got to go back to traditional Springbok rugby. The forwards taking it up, the big forwards, the Willem Alberts, the impact players, they need to all play a part. So I think if the Boks are going to make the game loose, they're going to be playing right into the All Blacks' hands, and they'll be giving the likes of Conrad Smith, Maanonu, Nene Mulniskadder, the other wing that nobody's actually talking about. That's also scored some magnificent tries at this World Cup. They'll be opening it up for them. And I think if the Boks go back to what we call traditional rugby, we stand a chance. If we open it up, we're asking for problems.
Mulniskadder is a little guy that runs around people, Jody.
Runs circles.
You get the headlines if you run over people. You know, this is how we roll in the media.
A lot of focus on Sevilla, but nobody's focusing. I mean, he's going to be an important player for the All Blacks.
I think so too.
Can we also not forget that the Boks are very resilient at the same time? You know, they've showed us throughout the World Cup that they're very resilient. But tomorrow against New Zealand, I don't know if that's really.
I'm going to put it out there. I put out a 22-all draw is what I've called it. 22-all draw in regulation time, with Pat Lambie to come off the bench and kick a drop goal, because, you know, that's what happened in 1995. Yeah, I'm very specific. 1995, that's what kind of happened, and I feel 20 years later, destiny, it has that kind of fabric about it.
It does, eh?
I agree with you, Eben, and I think the 2 number 10s are going to play an important role for each team. Andre Pollard, will he be able to step up against the legend Dan Carter? Dan Carter, will he leave his legacy and make it into another World Cup final? Of course, he got injured in the playoffs in 2011 and didn't get to play in that final.
Give us a number, Jody. Don't talk now. Give us a number.
I think the All Blacks are going to win.
Okay. Benny?
Oh, this man doesn't want to give us a number. Oh, All Blacks are definitely going to win. Close one. I'm thinking 27-24.
Talk about patriotism. I'm calling a draw with South Africa winning in extra time. But Gift is here with us. Gift, you've been out there talking to the people in the country. Can we get the camera on, Gift? There we go. Gift, shame, man. You're making you feel so lonely. Gift has been out in the streets talking to the people. And Gift, just tell us quickly what the people are saying. What's the mood like ahead of this big game?
People are still behind Springboks. Even if I can take you head to head, look, New Zealand has won more games more than us, but in terms of World Cup, we've won 2, they've won 1. So people are behind Springbok. Shortly, I'll show you what the people actually are saying, but we're still behind Springbok. These guys say New Zealand's going to win. I don't know, my man. In terms of World Cup, we've won more games. So shortly, we'll take you see what people are saying in the streets. Even though we met a few students, this is what they're going to say.
I'd like to wish the Springboks luck, because they're the only South African team that makes us proud. Otherwise, because squads are better.
I wish good for Mapogo and must work hard to win this game of Saturday. So I wish them well, come back with that cup.
Firstly, I just want to say I'm grateful that they are making it through to the semi-finals. And I'm so proud of you, Boggers. Go and make us proud furthermore. I know that you can do it. I know that you will take it because I trust in you. You have done it before, and I trust that you will do it furthermore.
I want to say to the Springboks, yes, good luck. Good luck. I love them,
Oh, we love
and we
them.
will support them all the way.
And they are strong, man. And we love
And they've been making us so proud about
Yeah.
them. So I want to say to them,
Go Springboks!
Go Springboks!
Like I would like to say shout out to the Springbok, and they should know that we are behind them all the time, and we wish them all the luck. And we know that on our first game, it was not really good, but after that we saw that like we are capable of winning this World Cup, and I trust that we're gonna win this World Cup tomorrow. We are winning. Go out there and make us proud.
Boke, make us proud. Bring the cup home. I'm representing green. I just need yellow, but don't disappoint us, guys. Mwah, peace.
I just want to wish Springboks all the best and make us proud. Go, Bokke!
Go Bokke, go kill them boys. Come back with it, go be straight.
Go Bokke!
Go Mapogo, go!
Go Bokke, go Bokke! We wish you all the best for the future. Bring that cup home. We are looking forward to it. We are waiting. We are going to fetch you to the airport. Please, with a win, with final win. Hey, Bokke, Bokke, Bokke!
Good luck, Springboks.
Yeah, that's a country united behind the Springboks. That's the fabric, that's the thing that makes us uniquely South African. It's the Nelson Mandela Legacy, World Cup 1995. Our question of the day, they ask of you, the Boks Date with Destiny. Send your messages of support. We want you to interact with us, to tell us, you know, what it would mean if the Boks had to win tomorrow. I think South Africa needs a World Cup win, to be honest. There's a lot of unhappy people in the country. None of these men, of course, they are not students anymore. They're now working for money. They paid off their student loans. So they don't care about the Fees Must Fall campaign. Guys, finally, two guys calling an all-black victory. Gift, you say Boks?
New Zealand must fall.
New Zealand must fall.
New Zealand
That's
must
the
fall.
hashtag that we're going with. New Zealand must fall. Pansi New Zealand, Pansi ABs. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Good! Oi! Sit!
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Welcome back. Time for us to get a little bit more serious now. The 2015 Grade 12 examination starts in earnest on Monday for the majority of learners. Now, a total of more than 800,000 learners registered to write the National Senior Certificate here in South Africa. Of the total, 674,232 are full-time candidates, with 127,456 part-time. Learners registered for subjects computer applications, technology, practical starts. Well, they started writing this week already. Minister of Basic Education has made the assurance that everything is on track, and more than 10 million question papers have been printed and distributed to almost 7,000 examination centres all over South Africa. Now, security have also been intensified to avoid the 2014 cheating fiasco that left some learners with egg on their faces. Now, the Department of Basic Education spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga joins us here in studio to talk about the state of readiness and the things that he's concerned about. Elijah? Matric exams must fall? No, it's D-Day on Monday.
Absolutely not. You know, Matric is the only thing that must be left untouched because it is very important. Any delay would delay anybody's plans, especially for their lives. If you were going to university next year or if you're planning to do something else next year, if there were to be any disruptions, it would cost you that much. It would cost you up to 12 months. And that's a long time. But as far as we are ready, as far as we are concerned, we are ready. And we are waiting for the learners to come through to our centers on Monday, ready and prepared to write. English is the first paper, is the biggest, and we expect them to have a good start to the examinations for 2015.
Now, this week, of course, we've seen some applications in KwaZulu-Natal, for instance. Computer technology applications had to be moved to another center. What happened there?
Well, such things happen. We always have contingency plans for examinations. You remember even in 2014 when there were protests in PE, we were able to move learners from one school to another and they were able to continue to write. So we have plans like those in place all the time to ensure that if there is something that we cannot avoid or something that cannot stop before exams start, we are able to move the learners. There was some disruptions there, but we were able to deal with that and we were able to assist those learners to write. Also because it was a practical examinations which was computer-based. So the place they were moving to needed to be ready with that technology and electricity to be available for them to continue to write.
Now, Elijah, a very important thing, of course, this year, focus for you guys is going to be security. After last year, we've seen the kind of fiasco we had around cheating and so forth, with even some of the moderators being said to be involved in the cheating that went on. How are you going to up the ante with security this year?
We've done several things. The first thing that we've done is to take over the administration of the examinations from those schools that were involved. Those that were suspected to have been involved, we are going to put more people there to monitor how the administration is happening. In the other schools that didn't get involved in the investigations, there we are going to ensure that monitors visit as well as sit there where necessary to ensure that there's no one that is trying to cheat the system. But we're also going to do other things that we're not saying as yet because we don't want people to know our security plans. But the warning is that if you are trying to undermine the system, if you're trying to cheat, you will be caught and the action will be harsh. And we hope that people have taken lessons from what took place in 2014 and the fact that the investigations are still underway and that we are already on to another examinations. With that incomplete, it means that people's plans are on hold as it is, where we are also trying to formulate charges against the invigilators that were involved. So people will be disciplined, other people's lives have already been disrupted, and that's not something that people want.
You talk about disruptions. We've seen what's been happening in the universities around the country this week. When you saw what's happening on campuses, were you a little bit nervous as a department that there could be copycatting, there could be a spillover of this kind of thing into the run-up to the Matric exams? And if so, have you looked at any precautions for that?
Yes, it can be a worry because, you know, where you have a large number of young people, anything is possible. But fortunately, it has been going well so far and it's been taking place mainly in the cities and schools have not been affected. And we hope that as we start the examinations on Monday, there will not be any disruptions of this nature. But what we have to say is that learners must desist from getting themselves involved in this because at the end of the day, it's what happens to you as an individual. And we encourage all our matriculants to ensure that they focus on their studies because university exams can be moved and have been moved in certain areas, but Matric exams cannot be moved.
Yes, they will. They will take place. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you for joining us and giving us a little bit of a heads up before Monday, when Matric exams start in earnest here in South Africa. Security's been beefed up, just for the record. So please don't take any chances with regards to cheating. It will come back to haunt you. It will come back to bite you this time around. There's zero tolerance with regards to cheating this year. Also, all systems go. The minister says so, Elijah says so. So it's going to be all systems go on Monday. Thank you, Elijah, for joining us. Now we go back to the protest. Hundreds of students from Wits University say they will make their way to the union buildings. They are underway to the union buildings right now on buses, and they plan to protest there ahead of the president's meeting with management and students with regards to the increase of university fees. Now here you see some of the pictures of what has been happening yesterday. Let's just take a look at some of the comments, some of the tweets that students have been putting in, and what else have been happening around the country. Already getting nervous. Well, there we're missing it. Can we have a look at those tweets? No? Okay. We can move on, Johan. Now, we move on. Fortunately, we'll look at those tweets a little bit later and kind of tell you what, well, the mood amongst the students we've seen early today. The mood is calm at the moment. They're going to protest, but the mood is calm, and they seem to be very well organized. Now, I can tell you that in studio, I've got another story. The Communication Workers Union says it will go ahead with a post office strike here in South Africa. Well, that's set to take place in Gauteng first from next week, after workers were told that they will only receive half their salaries from today. The union says it has written to the post office to pay up the full amount to avoid early protests. The post office has been battling financial problems with claims that some of its money has gone missing. Now, for more, we are joined in studio by the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union, Mr. Aubrey Chabalala. He's with us. Very good morning to you, Aubrey. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
We hear a story that post office workers, they received half of their salary on payday today. Is that true?
That is true. We actually received the letter informing us that they will pay them 50% on Friday afternoon. We then responded on the following working day, which was Monday, to say that it's a contractual obligation of employment, and therefore changing to terms and conditions of employment can only apply if there's a full consultation.
What are the post office saying? They can't afford it? They can't afford to pay full salaries? They don't have money?
Well, that's what they are saying. They are saying that in that letter briefly, they are saying that they don't have money to pay workers. That's what they are saying.
And what are you saying then in turn? If there's no money, you're not prepared to meet them halfway, as is this case. They say paying half salary, it should have been a negotiated process beforehand, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. You'll recall that since last year, this time, there was spiral of strike taking place, and there was this blame to workers that post office is unable to go forward because there's lack of production. It's been stable since then, and it has to be mentioned that workers have been experiencing an onslaught since then, cutting of contractual workers, cutting of some workers, which had a serious impact on the service delivery itself. And also, the other thing that we must not miss is that post office workers, by nature, they are government employees. Yeah. And government has been sitting mum, or there was no political will to intervene on the matter, and that make a serious impact up until this point in time.
Now, tell us about the strike action that you're planning, the strike action that you're going to embark upon. How is it going to proceed? Is it going to be in Gauteng only, or is it going to go from Gauteng around the country after that?
Well, this morning I can tell you that there have been mass meetings across the country. I've got calls from as far as Appington, Eastern Cape as well, and KZN, where workers are in various plants are not working as we speak, and it's something that we are intervening with it. Gauteng has planned to take a march to the public protector as well as the post office together with the government on next week on the 29th. So that they can take this action forward. I think this is more over and above post office level, but it talks to the funding of post office, how to revive the institution itself.
Finally, can this all be averted if there's a discussion with the management today?
Well, we don't know. I think that's a big arrogance from the post office side. I think it's a matter that they should have engaged us from the beginning. They could have averted this situation, but we are open for discussion. Unfortunately, I'm saying we don't know on the basis that the post office is not coming forward with a tangible plan, engaging us so that we can be able to engage our members as well.
Well, Aubrey, I thank you for coming in and giving us this view today. Now, post office workers here in South Africa, they're not happy at all. They received only 50% of their pay today. Actually, Aubrey tells me now they haven't received it yet. They're going to receive it later this afternoon, 50% pay, and they are engaging in mass meetings right now across the country to have an outcome, but it looks like the post office will be striking in Gauteng first and then around the country. Time for us to look at the weather now. Is it weather, Johan? Well, we're not going to have a weather update now. We'll look at the weather at about 28 minutes past 10 in the next hour. Don't forget our question of the day. Contribute. Send us your contribution. Your message of support to the Springboks. Of course, the Springboks, they've got a date with destiny. That's according to us. Send your messages of support to the box. We'll put it up a little bit later. And we'll have a nice big talking point around the box and what we should expect tomorrow. We'll be back at the top of the next hour. That's 10 o'clock with Elvis, who's standing by to take you all around the country where student protests are taking place today. See you then.
Good. Boy. Sit.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
It is important for everyone to know food safety practices and make sure that their food is prepared safely from farm to the plate.
Who ensures that there's compliance?
In terms of all the abattoirs, they have to be registered. So when they are being registered, they are actually audited fully to make sure that the structural requirements as well as the hygiene requirements are met.
Most bacteria and viruses cannot withstand the normal cooking temperatures that we use to cook our food.
The bigger retailers cannot be seen as being insensitive to the food safety requirements.
There are many consumers that actually go shopping with a cooler box and ice packs so that they don't break the cold chain, because a few hours outside the temperature that it should be already shortens the shelf life of that product.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Your destiny is not determined by the township you come from.
The one place we will find movers and shakers is in the township. It's just that they're diamonds in the rough and some of them don't even know it.
Being young with no experience in business is a challenge that Bulelani took upon himself.
I was motivated by the prayer. I was motivated by the love.
To be a novice in business was tough, but experience made him a businessman of note.
It took me 7 years to make my first million. I've got all the scars to prove that I started with nothing.
A journey well traveled.
For me, that is the one major thing. The ability to touch other people's lives. Nothing goes beyond that.
Join your host Puleng Mulebati on Bopilong every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
Looking for social issues?
It is not our intention to give condoms to 10-year-old children.
We're here to assist you. Looking for religious issues?
The point is not for the church to try and prove whether this is the fact.
So we want accountability. Is there a system of governance in your churches?
Political issues.
Barack Obama said Africa should stop looking to the outside for salvation and focus on someone else being at fault for the problems of the continent.
Economic issues.
The young mothers, single mothers that's buying property now.
Or just looking to air your views.
Here are some of your views on social media.
Look no further, as Newsroom has all the informative information you need. Weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Friday, the 23rd of October 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. Nationwide student fees must fall protest shows no sign of letting up ahead of today's meeting between President Jacob Zuma and the student leaders. Voters in East Africa's most populous country, Tanzania, head to the polls. And thousands rally in Athens over tax hikes and pension cutbacks. Those are all your headlines, but first let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the sports news. Good morning to you, Kendall.
No, good morning, Elvis, and very hearty good morning to everybody back home as well. This is what we've got in store for you in the sports at 10:20 today. Lawrence Sipaka, former Springbok prop, joins us to preview the final before the final. The semi-final match between South Africa and New Zealand at Twickenham tomorrow. And staying with rugby, the Currie Cup final is upon us as hot favourites Golden Lions look to wrest the title from defending champions Western Province at Emirates Park in the heart of Johannesburg. And South Africa's under-17s get a draw against North Korea in their Group E clash at the FIFA World Cup in Chile. India has levelled the 5-match ODI series against the Proteas at 2-2 after a 35-run victory in Chennai yesterday. And that in a nutshell is what we've got for you in terms of the sports. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's start off now with our top story this morning. In this hour, students from various universities will gather at Burgess Park in the Pretoria CBD before marching on to the Union buildings. Several streets are expected to be closed. SABC's Sipho Stirman is at the gathering point this time with the Metro Police spokesperson. Sipho, very good morning to you and welcome. It's over to you. Sipho, are you there? Well, it seems like we can't get hold of Sipho. Let's now see if the students are taking their protest fees must fall, the hashtag there, to the highest authority in the country. Now, hundreds of students are on their way to participate in a student march to the Union buildings. Students plan to protest there ahead of President Jacob Zuma's meeting with management and students with regards to the university fee increases. SABC reporter Griselda Lewis is on a bus with the students. A very good morning to you, Griselda. What is the mood like in the bus, and have you left already for Pretoria?
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis. We're joining you once again live inside one of the buses that are moving from Wits University to the Union buildings. I can tell you hundreds of students are on these buses. There are plenty of them even behind me at the morning. As you can see, a jovial atmosphere here. Students from all different political parties are saying they're going to the Union buildings with one voice calling for the fees not to be increased in 2016. As you can hear, it's a bit difficult, to broadcast under these conditions, but you can't take away the jubilation that these students are bringing to the union buildings. Let me have a word with you first of all. You've been up from very early. With one voice, you're going to the union buildings. I keep asking the same question every time because the experiences of each student are different. Why are you on this bus? You told me about a financial struggle. That's why you're going to the union buildings today.
To be on the bus, I want to see Jacob Zuma to raising the 0% increase. And then we are fighting as students for free education. We are, as students, to say President Zuma and to agree on a 0%. We are suffering every January, every February, early in the year. We are suffering as a student. But we want to study like any other person who is studying.
Personal story, you were telling me that your fees are absolutely unaffordable. You owe the university a lot of money. There's simply no way that you're going to be able to pay it back.
I owe University 60. So I'm not sure my bursary will pay or what, but I don't know. Hey, I'm not. So next year I'm gonna have to. If I'm not next year, so that's the problem I have.
Right, thank you very much. Let's move to some other students. What the struggle is about that's going to the things today. Can we have a You're live on television. The struggle, are you in your first, second, or third year? You're in your third. Do you have a little brother or sister perhaps who is going to university in the next few years? All right, so what is the struggle for you? What is it about for you?
Okay, this struggle is about not only VET students. It's all about all the learners that are coming. The students that are in high schools, university. If their fees are increasing like this ridiculously, they can't afford to be in the high university. And as well, we will be a student if the fees are very high like this one. And our students, they pass with distinctions, but then it's very bad and sad when you are very awarded to be in university, but then the fees, you don't have any money to pay. Yes, we are suffering. Our parents don't afford anything, but then can you please, the government, work on this, because we cannot study because of the money. Yes, we are capable, we can pass and we meet the requirements that university needs, but then the fees, they're just not in our side, and that's wrong.
Thank you very much. Let's perhaps one more student here, but perhaps will be able to speak to us as well. Let's come to the ladies here. Are we able to speak to one of you too? Let me come here. What is the struggle for? What is it about for you? You're on the bus. What time did you wake up this morning? And what are you hoping will come from these talks between President Jacob Zuma, your student leaders, as well as the executives of universities?
Actually, I don't even live on campus. I live off campus, so I did have to wake up at around 5. And, obviously we're hoping for a 0% increase to be approved. 6% is still a bit much, considering that the current fees, most people actually can't even pay it, and some matrics already not come here because of this current school fees. So, we're hoping for a 0% increase. Yes, that's what I think is going to come out of this, because we've been working very hard, and they can see it now that we're very about achieving this goal, because at first I think they didn't take us seriously. As we started very little, and the whole country has come to a standstill. Obviously, I think we can do this. We can do this.
Just one more, but very importantly, some of the people who picked Brant, camera person, Chulo Munare, to come with us. Also, to speak to some of the lecturers. The lecturers at Wits have to listen to the plight of these students. Thank you very much for joining us. As well, a lecturer. Your role, you were telling me a bit earlier, is to support these students. You get to hear sometimes firsthand what their challenges are.
Well, I mean, I think students face a range of challenges, and it's not just financial. It is quality of education which they come into it as well. So this protest, in fact, has much bigger implications than university fees. It includes the need for proper and well-funded secondary and primary education as well, because it's out of that system that our students come to this. And if they're not well prepared, they struggle with an additional layer, particularly if they come from poor households. And what we're ultimately getting in South Africa is a system where if you come from wealth, you have access to good secondary education and you will probably get a university degree. If you do not, if you're from a working class background or a rural background, you will struggle to get to university because you will not have parents who can afford to pay your fees, and you will have a backlog in terms of your educational challenges as well. And those students have incredibly hard time at university to pass, to get. And often they eventually do, but it's their first year is really hard, and those students then lose NEFSA's funding because they didn't necessarily pass their courses or to find additional ways to then get them through university, never mind the starting costs that are absolutely ridiculous in a country like ours.
What are some of the stories that you've heard from some of the students in your class? You know, perhaps some of them having to leave because they simply cannot afford.
No, we often have students who finish a year degree, like a first year, for example, or second year, but then they have to go and work for the next year to actually pay their fees. And some of them never make it back because they also support brothers and sisters at home who might be able to go to university if the sibling actually is able to raise the money. And students often, I mean, we have students who sleep, we've had this in the past, where students who actually sleep in university buildings because they can't afford accommodation. Students who can't necessarily eat regular meals, and so they struggle to actually just make it through a day. And if students don't eat and if they don't have decent accommodation, it would be very, very difficult for those students to concentrate on their work.
Thank you very much there. Some of the voices as well, show of support as well from the lecturers at this university, Durban, who are saying students often go to them and complain about the fact that they have to go and work instead of studying, and some of them sleeping in lecture halls, some of them sleeping in some of the buildings at universities because they simply cannot afford the accommodation. If you're going to be able to afford the fees, then it's either you're going to have to sacrifice accommodation. So essentially, this is what these students are saying this is all about. It's not about bringing the country to a standstill. It's about getting somebody to listen to their plight. They do not want the fees to be increased. They simply cannot afford it. So they're really hoping, I think like many of the other hundreds of students who are on the buses here, Tulo, if you could just move towards that direction. There's another bus here next to us, also singing struggle songs, really hoping for the best coming out of these talks between the head of state, President Jacob Zuma, of course, and the heads of these institutions, as well as the leaders of these students. But we'll continue broadcasting from inside these buses here on SABC News. Stay tuned for all of that. We'll certainly hear a lot more voices coming through from the students, as well as lecturers who are also on these buses to support these young people. Well, it seems like the bus is just about starting up. At the moment, we're about to go, so we'll catch you again later when we're en route to the Union buildings.
Thank you, Griselda. On the bus on the way to Pretoria, they're running a bit late. That march is supposed to start at 10 o'clock, as you know. But students from various universities will now all gather at Burgers Park in the Pretoria CBD before they march on to the Union buildings. Now, SABC Sipho Steerman is at the gathering point this time with the Metro Police spokesperson. Sipho, a very good morning to you once again and welcome.
Good morning to you, Elvis. Yes, the march here at Burgers Park is picking steam. We have hundreds of students, close to 1,000 if not more, that are already gathered here. But of course, as you've just mentioned as well in your intro, there are still many more coming. And with that said, they're going to be marching, of course, to the Union buildings as part of the Fees Must Fall campaign. And you can only imagine that it's going to be quite a huge security undertaking for the Metro Corps. And I've got someone who's actually going to explain to us exactly what the plans are for the day in terms of security and keeping this march as peaceful as it can possibly be. I've got the spokesperson of the Metro Corps here in the city of Tshwane, Mr. Isaac Mahamba. Sir, You see the numbers are increasing every minute. How ready are you as the Metro Corps for this march to the union buildings?
We are ready. Remember, we are interacting with the organizers of this particular march, and they are telling us in terms of the numbers that are still coming here. We have deployed enough security, we've deployed enough Metro Corps, we've deployed enough police officers just to make sure that everything goes well. But remember, we are expecting a peaceful march, as we already engaged the organizers, and we told them our expertise as the police, and we are happy about the developments up until at this stage.
All right, we saw that in Cape Town there were instances where the cops there clashed with the students and they were criticized for using excessive force. Are you prepared, as you leading the Metro Corps here, have you spoken to them about that, to sort of restrain themselves from using excessive force?
Remember, I don't want to comment about what happened in Cape Town because I don't have much details about that particular incident. But here we are saying we don't talk excessive force. We see students that are peaceful. We see the Metro Corps that are here just to assist the motorists that are affected with this particular march. So there's nothing like we are going to talk at this stage. There's the necessity force. But remember, operational decision might be taken at any moment. We don't know what could happen. But as I said, at this stage, it's still peaceful, and that's what we're expecting for entire day.
So what you're saying is that students also need to play within the rules and keep it peaceful for you guys to be able to not use excessive force.
Remember, that's what we told the organizers, and they gave that commitment to us that it's going to be peaceful. And that's what we are seeing now. Every student that are here, they are very much peaceful. So that's what we're expecting for entire day. And yes, we engaged them, as I indicated earlier on. We told the leadership that we are expecting a peaceful march, and they've given that commitment to us that everything is going to be peaceful.
All right, well, thank you. That is the Metro spokesperson here, the city of Tshwane, telling us that they expect a peaceful march to the union buildings and that they've been engaging with the student leaders here, urging them to talk to the students, not to do any misbehavior or perform outside the rules that have been set for this march, so that everyone just can come on board and ensure a peaceful and safe march to the union buildings.
Sipho, the numbers is mounting there. Can you tell us paint us a picture of what's happening there currently? What does the numbers look like?
Well, there's close to 1,000 students that have arrived here. They keep arriving every minute with buses. We've seen that there's actually some students carrying flags from WITS. TUT students, University of Technology are also here. And of course, TAX, University of Pretoria students are also some of the early arrivals here because they come from this city. So the students are gathering, they're walking around and they're singing. Of course, some political organizations are also here. We see the ANC here, we see the DA youth groups are also here. So it's really just a gathering of various groups all standing against expensive university fees.
Just briefly, in a second, what time is the march supposed to then start? It was supposed to start at 10 o'clock originally.
Yes, originally the gathering was supposed to have started at 10 a.m. this morning, but of course there's seeming to be some delays because some students are coming from far away. But now I'm noticing that they are being called and they are being briefed, so that tells me that in a minute or two we are actually going to start marching to the union buildings because they are moving away from us now. You can see the background is clear. They are going for a briefing and they should be moving very soon to the union buildings.
Sipho, thank you so much for that update. Now, the Fees Must Fall movement's final destination today is, of course, the union buildings, where the president is expected to meet the student leaders. Our reporter Tumaole Mashlauli is there waiting for the arrival of the students. Tumaole, a very good morning to you once again. What can you tell us what's happening there now?
Thank you very much. Well, it's quite a slow start to the student gathering here at the union buildings. I am just standing on the fence just to the north of the South Lawns, where it is anticipated that students from across the country will be converging to bring their message to the union buildings. Behind me, a truck has been set up with loudspeakers, and I anticipate this is where the student leadership will be addressing their comrades who will be gathered on the South Lawns. Now, behind me in the Union buildings, I understand that the leadership of the Fees Must Fall campaign are currently meeting and engaging with officials from the presidency and officials from government about exactly what it is they are coming to demand and the message that they are anticipating or expecting that the state would be delivering to the students they are expecting to arrive here at any minute now. But looking out on the South Lawns, it's still quite a relatively slow start. However, there are a few students who have gathered, and I'm joined by two of them now. Ladies, tell me why it's important for you to be here at this particular event.
It is very much important because education in South Africa is actually a free basic service. We should have access to education. So now if it's going to be expensive, then it doesn't make sense. How come can a basic service be expensive? They should come out and explain to us as well. They should take responsibilities as leaders and tell us how can a basic service be so expensive then.
Now, earlier I spoke to some students who were saying that they are concerned about the time it will take to get a response that they want because exams are coming up. What are you expecting from government? Do you want them to intervene immediately?
Yes, for sure. I want them to intervene immediately because now everything is stopped at universities. And the reason why we're here to study. We want to make South Africa a better place. But for them not to respond to us, it's like it's a waste of time because we students, we want free education. That's all we want. As soon end up then doing drugs, then the next thing the government is blaming Tina as youth. We're not doing nothing for ourselves. Yet we want to study. But they should support Tina, but support whatever it takes. Education should be free for everyone in South Africa. We want to study. So for South Africa in the next 10 coming years, even it's just an educated country, a better country, not like before. Yeah, that's the reason why I'm here.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So that was just some views from some students who have already come out to show solidarity for this Fees Must Fall campaign. It is important to note, however, that many tertiary institutions are independent of government. They are essentially run as private institutions. However, the momentum which has since arisen with students from all parts of the country, from all sectors of society, coming together, banding together and saying that financial exclusion is definitely something that they cannot tolerate any longer because it denies them a basic access to a human right which is enshrined in the constitution of the country, which is education. So this is the message that is coming through. What I can tell you, just to paint a picture, looking out across the South Lawns, people are beginning to trickle in slowly in their numbers. Although the Union buildings is, of course, a popular tourist destinations, some of them are indeed those who have come out in solidarity, and students. Buses have also begun to arrive and park to the south of the furthest perimeter fence in the South Lawn. So I anticipate that as the morning goes along, the numbers will swell, and then we will see the full might of the students as they come forward to demand their right to education and non-exclusion. With that, I throw back to you in the studio.
Right now, that was our reporter on the scene talking to us about everything that's been happening with the hashtag Fees Must Fall. Now, we're talking rugby and sports right now. I'm Kendall Makamate, and we're taking up that hype another notch of that Rugby World Cup semi-final. Loerde Jager, who's undergoing a late fitness test later today to determine whether he'll be able to play or not. And Brad Thorne, a former All Black and World Cup 2011 winner, spoke about the upcoming colossus of a game between the Springboks and the All Blacks. Let's take a listen.
I think it's implanted in your DNA. From a young age, you know enemy number one is the All Blacks, and they know enemy number one is South Africa. It's just how it is. But yeah, we don't fear them. I think there's a mutual respect between the two nations, but we don't fear them. We play against them a lot. We know what to expect. We know it's a big challenge, but we're up for it and we're ready for Saturday. I think they have a world-class team. You don't play for New Zealand if you're not a world-class player. Same with the Springboks. I think you don't play for the Springboks if you're not world-class player. So I think it's going to be a massive, massive game. A lot of hard impact and a lot of, I think, exciting rugby as well, if the weather holds up. So yeah, hopefully we can make it a good festival for everyone, and hopefully the Springboks come out on top.
Blacks to keep their feet on the ground. It helps having a whole heap of senior players that have been there before. You've got guys who have been at World Cup since 2003, Richie and Dan, and 07 where we fell away, and then 2011. So there's a heap of experience there, over 1,000 test caps in the starting side, I think. I think it won't just be from the coaches, but the senior players will lead the way on that, hoping to be fizzing on Saturday and bring everything you've got. And as the game wears on, can they stay with us? High intensity rugby. So it's all about building pressure this stage of the World Cup, because there's no Monday if you don't get the job done.
And of course, the fiercest rivalry in world rugby is about to play out its next episode at Twickenham in London tomorrow. New Zealand and South Africa will have the rugby world in thrall when they take to the field in the first Rugby World Cup semi-final. Both sides have won the World Cup twice, with New Zealand aiming to become the first country to win successive tournaments. Now with me is former Bok, Lawrence Sipaka. Good morning and welcome back to Newsroom.
Thank you, Kendall. Nice to be here again.
Before we talk about that shirt that you're wearing in the Springbok semi-final tomorrow, let's touch a little bit on the home final that's going to be happening. The Currie Cup final that's happening tomorrow afternoon. Kick-off at 1:15, I believe, between the Lions and the holders, Western Province.
Yeah, no, that's been exciting rugby. I mean, it slightly could have been overshadowed by the quality of rugby that's been we're experiencing at home. We could not really miss it. I mean, the quality, comparing to the quality we're seeing with the Springboks, you tend to turn back a bit and see what's cooking here, while the bigger boys are busy overseas. And it's coming to a boiling point now where the guys need to take that cup home.
Who do you think is going to take it? Is it Province going to take it back, or is it Lions who've been sublime the entire season?
I think the only worry for me, the guys that could have really disturbed the Lions, besides the Cheetahs trying to pull a first one on us last week, I think the Bulls were the only contenders to really put pressure on the Lions. Western Province stole it from the Bulls, and I don't think they can steal it twice. I mean, they stole the Currie Cup from the Lions last year because the Lions were complacent, going to Cape Town, thinking it's in the bag. I think this time they've learned their lesson. They're keeping their feet on the ground and go there and destroy. I mean, 3 weeks ago...
You're not sounding very objective here.
No, boss. It's not a negotiation, this one, and those guys are ready to go.
Score prediction?
Well, it's a final. I'll give them plus 20.
Plus 20 to the Lions.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the big one for the weekend, the Boks against the All Blacks. They've met 3 times at the World Cup. South Africa's won twice, whereas the All Blacks have won once. Does that make any difference tomorrow?
Well, that's for history books, boss, because what matters is what happens tomorrow. It's going to be rewritten again if they're going to go 3 or they're going to even up with the All Blacks. But it's a crucial one, this one. The loser goes home. And obviously we know that, and every time the occasions is one has gone home, so that, the one that wins that carries on.
Okay, cool. Now, with that said, I mean, Heineken Omega has been going on all week about how awesome this particular All Black side is. But Hansen has come out and said, look, you know what, this guy's playing mind games. We're ready for them, though. What do you think is going to be happening tomorrow? Apparently, it's going to be a little wet. What do you think is going to be happening? Is it going to be a tough arm wrestle, or is it going to be running rugby all around?
If it's wet, I think it's going to suit South Africa better because of the 4 dominance game that we have in the kicking. But I'm kind of worried because the talisman that used to actually master the kicking plan to the T is like not even on the bench today. He's on the bench. No, he's not on the bench. And the guy that's on the lead is actually a running flyer, so that confuses a bit when the weather's going to play this role. And on the other side as well, I think the tech South Africa had in the quarters was a dangerous one because we get very complacent very quickly as a nation. Now that the underdog and no one gives them a chance, they're the most dangerous. So that's why Hansen is like, it's mind games. Actually, it's not mind games. It's fact. When South Africa underdogs and no one is backing them, they're the most dangerous. I was hoping someone actually, pump them up a bit as well.
And nobody is.
Considered, and no one is pumping them up because they put up a spectacle last week. So people are expecting a spectacle again.
So what do you think the game breakers are going to be? Is it, you reckon it's the forward pack if it's wet? Let's say it's not as wet as we expect it to be. Where are the game breakers then?
Regardless, in the forward packs, I think South Africa's got their number there. It's in the back line. In the counter-attacks, Ben Smith, the back 3, they sort of one step ahead of our back 3 in terms of counter-attacks and looking after the ball better and how they spread out, they read the game. I think our ammunition has basically become very predictable. Hence, the Brian Habanas, they got actually stuffed a lot of balls. So you haven't seen much of them really having a one-on-one situation. They have to go look for work or they have to actually take from scrap, and then counter-attack hasn't really become a tool, because the ball they get is not really you can use, so you have to shift it and then get to a position where they can regenerate, continue it again. So they're not used to actually running from the back, because having a bigger pack, that's a disadvantage as well. Can't move them around too much, because come 60 minutes, those fumes are going to start burning out.
All right, now so basically we're talking about a big breakdown contest, and we don't have any fetches really, any qualified fetches. We've got lots of ball carriers. Do you think this is where we'll lose the match?
Now the whole World Cup, I've been criticizing the Springboks just on that part, because on third phase, that's where we started losing most of our balls. But considering the weather, the game becomes slightly slower, unless New Zealand, because they can play in the wet, they speed it up still in that condition, and they break it up. South Africa's defense is solid from first phase. Control defense, first phase defense, they're one of the better teams in this tournament. So New Zealand is aware of that. So they want to create a situation where it's broken.
Yes.
Then that's where the holes are going to start showing up.
All right, now we're about to run out of time. Now, before we do that, I want to bring up quickly a reminder to all of our viewers in case they don't remember exactly which matches are being played over the weekend. We've got a little graphic that we put together in terms of the fixtures for the semi-final. It's right here behind us, and it shows that South Africa, New Zealand kick-off 5 p.m. and on Sunday, Australia, Argentina, 6 p.m. Can you tell us who's in the final looking at these?
If New Zealand unleash the wrath, they're in the final. Argentina, that one is a done deal. I think Argentina is going to be more powerful than for Australia.
There you go. Lawrence Parker saying that Argentina and possibly New Zealand in the final if they don't stumble.
If they don't stumble, like they usually choke when it comes to games like this. So, but I hope they choke.
Spoken like a man from the heart of the fire. Lawrence Parker, former Springbok prop, sharing with thoughts with us on the semi-finals this weekend. And that's the way we leave it with the sports. And we'll be back shortly. In fact, we've got some tweets that we've got, some comments people have got. Please share this with us. Lawrence, Kelly Knudsen already getting nervous for the SA New Zealand game tomorrow. Springboks, you need to pull through for us at the Rugby World Cup 2015. Is there another one? Can we show another one to our viewers? Yes, Mr. H. Good luck to Flolo and the rest of the Springboks for tomorrow. The Bath family. Did you get a lot of these when you were playing?
I wonder if Twitter was even around when I played.
Jump in the bag. Springbok, behind our boys all the way. Make us proud. Believe. Then that's what they need to do tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think they need to believe, and obviously they know they've got home ground advantage, and they basically getting the support. They've got a lot of South Africans over there, and so they really know. I think they're confident at the moment because they know they're underdogs, and when they lose, no one is going to cry much.
No, that's true. Well, all support will be behind you 100%. And those are all the well wishes from everybody who's hoping that this match turns out for the better for the green and gold. Lawrence, thank you for joining us, and I hope to speak to you again very soon.
No worries.
All right, now Lawrence Parker will be back with more news after this break. Stay close.
It is important for everyone to know food safety practices and make sure that their food is prepared safely from farm to the plate.
Who ensures that there's compliance?
In terms of all the abattoirs, they have to be registered. So when they are being registered, they are actually audited fully to make sure that the structural requirements as well as the hygiene requirements are met.
Most bacteria and viruses cannot withstand the normal cooking temperatures that we use to cook our food.
The bigger retailers cannot be seen as being insensitive to the food safety requirements.
There are many consumers that actually go shopping with a cooler box and ice packs so that they don't break the cold chain, because a few hours outside the temperature that it should be already shortens the shelf life of that product.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Hello once again. It's time now for us to shift our focus to what is happening on the African continent, and we start with a look at some of the top stories doing the rounds. We start in Tanzania. Now, the country is having an election this weekend, but is also facing a major cholera outbreak. There's 74 deaths and nearly 5,000 cases have been reported recently. The World Health Organization yesterday called for an urgent application to stop the disease from spreading to neighboring countries. Tanzania's largest city, Dar es Salaam, is now the most affected with about 3,500 cases. The country is said to head to the polls for the presidential elections this Sunday. Then at least 13 people have been killed in a week of violence in Guinea following protests around the presidential elections there. This is according to a report released by Amnesty International yesterday. Security forces are said to be responsible for killing unarmed civilians. Guinea held a highly contested presidential election nearly 2 weeks ago now. Then Zimbabwean government critics yesterday condemned a decision to award the Chinese equivalent of the Nobel Peace Prize to President Robert Mugabe. The Confucius Peace Prize, established in 2010, was awarded to President Mugabe for his dedicated work to bringing political and economic order to the country. The award has been considered an attack on the nation by some. The controversial president has now ruled the country for more than 35 years. Then Malawi has received a grant of $332 million to fight AIDS and other diseases in the country. President Peter Mutharika made the announcement yesterday, saying that this brings much-needed support for the country struggling with health issues. Mutharika accepted the grant from international aid organization, the Global Fund in Lilongwe. Malawi has one of the highest HIV prevalence rates on the planet. Those are your African headlines. Now, the power of the mobile phone on the continent is growing at a rapid pace, with about 750 million active SIM cards on the continent. But recently, new innovations are putting mobile phones in an even higher demand. Some are even calling it the next mobile phone boom. Now, to talk to us about this and tell us a little bit more, we're joined by avid traveller and author of the book Connect with the Continent, Terry Bean. A very good morning to you, Terry. Thank you for joining us once again.
Good morning.
Now, although we're seeing this rapid increase in access to phones across the continent, smartphones can be quite expensive if we look at it top down. What about the innovative $50 smartphone?
Well, to take you back a little bit, I mean, that's a big drop in price. I mean, when the smartphone first came out, June 2007, $600. Yeah. In today's money, that's almost $900. Now it's down to $50. So the impact of the $50 smartphone is going to be quite significant across the continent.
Yeah, that's right. In South Africa, if you buy a new, call it a top-of-the-range cell phone, it's up to 17,000 Rand, which is well over $1,000. This $50 smartphone, why do you think is it so important for the continent?
I think for a couple of reasons. I mean, technologists have said that when the price of smart technology comes down to the $50 mark, it means that everybody in the middle class can access it, but also a lot of people in the mass market. And $50 is an important price point because it allows the majority of people to get hold of technology that can do amazing things.
Smartphone boom is what the pundits are talking about. What will that mean on the ground?
I think in practical terms, when you have a lot more people being able to utilize a smartphone, you can get much better third-party applications. You can get content on those phones that can do a lot more. So a good example is educational content, agricultural information, stuff that's really important to the average farmer or student or person across the continent.
Yeah. App creates, fast adapting the needs of Africans, such as access to healthcare even. What other kinds of apps have you seen around the continent that kind of stands out for you, that's really making a difference in the lives of Africans?
I've seen a lot of them in the medical area. There's a really nice one in East Africa called Daktari. Daktari is an application where you're able to sort of ask questions to medical professionals on your phone and get really fast answers, which is quite important because if you have a medical problem and you want to go to the hospital, it might be a day trip to get there. Yeah. So you're able to get this information, utilize it correctly, and stop yourself from maybe having to make that trip. Equally so, we talk about agriculture being a big growth area. You and I have spoken about this before on the continent. Being able to share pricing, being able to share technology, information, training, education on agricultural techniques in, just in text messages, but more relevantly nowadays on the smartphone in audiovisual, allows farmers to learn rapidly and increase their yield, increase their productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, access to it is very important. Do we have the necessary distribution networks around the continent to get these phones in the hands of the people that need them most?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you started off with a very important point around there's about 750 million active SIM cards on the continent. So those are active SIM cards and active phones. The distribution networks are there. South Africa was one of the first countries to sort of adopt the sort of low-cost smartphone revolution.
Yeah.
MTN brought out a really good product called the Stepa. Vodacom brought out a really good product called the Smart Kika. One of the big giants in East Africa brought out the YOLO. And then in West Africa, my favorite one's called the Solo, which is a dual SIM version of the smartphone. And dual SIM is very important because depending on where you're traveling, cell phone networks are not particularly reliable sometimes. So when one goes down, you flip over your dual SIM to the other network, and you only have to carry one phone instead of having to carry 2 or 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Which countries are doing the best? You mentioned the regions, but which countries are doing the best with regards to access to these phones?
I think currently I'd have to say the East African market's booming, because they were a very early adopter of technology in general. And this kind of technology, they're almost like waiting for the price point to hit, which it has. And now they're in a position where the apps are already developed. So you've got things like Farmline, where young farmers are able to go and access farming information. Obviously, young people want music, they want sports information, they want current affairs. There's a lot of applications that allow that to happen. But in general, I think East Africa is a lot smaller than the West African markets, but has grown a lot quicker. West Africa, with the advent of phones like the Solo, are slightly late adopters, but the size of that market is considerably bigger. So they're going to upswing rapidly in the next couple of months.
These devices it's one thing to be connecting individuals and making life a little bit easier and to access information and so forth. How is it helping business, though?
I think in a real way. I think what we're seeing is a significant shift away from bricks and mortar retail towards online retail. I mean, if you're sitting in an office in Cairo or in Lagos and you're saying, I'm popping out to the bank for half an hour or go to do some shopping, that ain't going to happen. It's a day trip. Now you can sit there in the comfort of your car, in the comfort of your office or your home. You, through your low-cost smartphone, can go online to big purchasing sites like Jumia or Konga. You can order stuff and have it delivered to your home the next day. It saves you an abundantly large amount of time.
Paying your bills, you can even be paying your bills. I see some of the, call it satellite networks on the continent. People can now, in the most remote areas, even pay their bills in subscription.
Yeah, I mean, subscription is you've got this kind of weird relationship between sort of satellites and satellite television, and then the ability to be able to then pay sort of using a mobile device. So what's starting to happen is you're getting this democratization of information and democratization of technology. And the impact of you or I having this device is minimal. But the impact of somebody who's sitting there in the north of Kenya, in Turkana, having a device where they can get the information they need, where they can apply online, where they can purchase certain things, is fundamentally going to change how we consume and how we evolve in the next couple of years continentally.
Well, Terry, thanks for joining us today. Terry Bien is the author of a book called Connect with the Continent. If you haven't got a copy, get one. It will really help you understand what's happening on the continent with regards to all things, including innovation. Thanks for joining us, as always. Terry travels all over. He gives us the old video clip of where he is, and we put that up periodically. Where are you going to be next, Terry?
I'm going to Lagos on Sunday.
Lagos on Sunday. Well, at least he'll be here in South Africa to watch the rugby. Now, let's move on and take a look at the front pages from around the continent. We'll start in Swaziland, where the Swaziland Observer reports that Public Service Pension Chief Executive Officer Cleophas Dlamini said banks and pension funds in Swaziland operated in different environments and were not competing. Then we move to Nigeria, where this day says more than 4 months after the inauguration of the House of Representatives of the 8th Assembly and prolonged lobbying, Speaker Yakubu Dogara finally announced the chairman and deputy chairman of the 96 standing committees of the House. Then finally we move to Angola, where the Angola de Jornal reports that the sectors of agriculture and fisheries will enhance the delivery of national products to the oil industry under the National Development Plan aimed at the inclusion of the national business into the oil sector. Tanzania heads to the polls on Sunday for its fifth multi-party presidential elections in what is expected to be the tightest election contest in the country's history. The campaigns leading up to the big vote have so far been peaceful between supporters of the ruling Chama Mapinduzi party and the rival Civic United Front. But soldiers have been deployed to monitor the streets for safety. Joining us now on the line is Africa Practice Consultant Emmanuel Nyamajeje. A very good morning, Emmanuel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you too.
Emmanuel, just give us an idea. What's the atmosphere like in the country now, just as we head into the election weekend?
So right now, actually, it's very interesting. People are raising, flying flags left, right, and center. The atmosphere itself, people are quite anxious with what's going to happen with these elections. You know, there have been many statements being made out there by these opposition leaders, which have made the public be a bit agitated, you can say. But we are looking forward to the 25th, and so far so good. It's very peaceful, very calm, and yeah, people are quite eager to go and vote.
Now, this is considered to be one of the tightest contests that the country's ever seen. Why is that?
So, as you know, CCM, the ruling party, Chama cha Mapinduzi, has been in power for the past 50 years or so. But this is the first time, actually, the opposition have come together, like they form a coalition of four parties, just to take CCM out of power. So you can see at least they're trying to adopt a new strategy this time around. Plus the massive support which they've acquired from having the youth. You know this, the leader, Lowassa, who's actually representing Chadema under the umbrella of Ukawa. So he's very popular amongst the youth, which constitute more than 60% of the total voters. So you can see how the support base which Ukawa has right now, the opposition have. But you know, CCM as usual, they have one of the strongest candidates, Mr. Dr. John Magufuli. He's one of the most competent technocrats who's been working for government for the past 20 years or so. So you can see the challenge, how it is. And people are aware right now, like political awareness has grown in the country. Everybody knows that my vote can be decisive in this general election. So it's quite, it's going to be a very, very tight race.
Now, Emmanuel, security is always a concern when we deal with any election, especially on the continent. What's the outlook for security this weekend?
So yeah, there's a lot of, you can say it's not warning, but there's some statements which are being made out there that we should be cautious. As soon as you make your vote, you just go and relax at home instead of just sitting around and saying that you're going to protect your votes and cause riots left, right, and center. I can say that it's so far so good. It's still very peaceful, but people are worried. Anything can happen, especially if the results might go. It might be a close race between them.
Well, Emmanuel, I thank you very much for giving us that update. That is Africa Practice Consultant Emmanuel Nyamajeje. He's in Tanzania. Of course, election is there on Sunday. We have a team that have departed and will be crossing live there periodically over the weekend to give you updates. Now, we're going to take a short break. After the break, it's going to be the Pep Talk. Elvis will be talking to Professor Raymond Parsons. Stay with us.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Catch! Point! Set!
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
It's time for the pep talk. Treasury revised its growth forecast substantially lower in the medium-term budget policy statement, or the mini-budget, which the Finance Minister, Tanzanian, announced on Wednesday. Constrained growth and the consequent revenue erosion will make it difficult to maintain fiscal balance unless there are material expenditure cuts. Nene cut this year's growth forecast to 1.5%. However, he doesn't see any reason for a downgrade from the credit rating agencies. Now, this year alone, government will be spending close to 130 billion rand on debt servicing costs, and revenue is said to decline by 7.6 billion rand. Parliament also became a battleground as the fees must fall campaign rocked Parliament and the country as a whole. Now, to discuss this and other factors relating to our economy in our weekly slot is Professor Parsons, Raymond Parsons, right here in studio. He's an economist and, of course, from the Northwest University's Business School. Professor, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elvis.
Now, the medium-term budget was the talk of the town this week and top of the agenda and top of mind for everybody on the economic front. Let's start with that. Your impressions of the mini-budget.
Well, let me start by saying, as you will be aware, it may have been a mini-budget, but it was a major week. From many points of view. Quite clearly, the message in the mini-budget was that South Africa's in a low-growth trap, and that affects all of us. But clearly, as the Minister emphasized, it affects his tax revenues and his ability to do things. In other words, we're now in a phase in our public finances where it's not a question of doing this and that. It's a question of doing this or that. What is nice to do and what do we have to do? And I think this means there's some hard choices which have to be made because there are competing demands on the fiscus, and we saw them listed in the budget. And we won't be able to have all these things: nuclear power, national health insurance, social security, free tertiary education. These are all important priorities, but they're going to have to be some tough decisions taken as to where you put your resources and what are your priorities. Of course, we must have priorities. But the important thing is to get the right priorities. And that's not just an economic decision. Of course, it's also a political decision. So the eyes are very much on the numbers in the budget. What can we afford? And as you said, of course, the credit rating agencies are watching it. I think the Minister's right to think that he's done enough to hold them at bay for a little longer. But if I might borrow a phrase, debt must fall.
Well, there's another hashtag coming. Now, the economic background to the Finance Minister dilemma, was it mostly focused on global or was it local as well?
As the Minister said, look, it's a combination of what has gone wrong in the global economy. And we know the whole issue of the Chinese economy and that the growth forecasts for the world economy have been reduced a little bit. Not that there's going to be any sort of global recession, but the outlook is less supportive of the commodity exporters like South Africa. But he did also say that the primary drivers of what we have to face are in fact domestic issues. We have to get our growth rate up. We've got to get our economy right. We mustn't hide behind what's happening globally. We can't do anything about it. Yes. We must concentrate on the factors over which we have control in South Africa, whether it's our growth policy, our labour market policy, our infrastructure policy. We've got to get ahead with those things, and that is what's going to make a difference to lift the growth rate. We're going to have to lift the growth rate. The world will not lift it for us.
You borrowed the phrase, debt must fall, but there's fees must fall campaign that's happening currently with all the students. That balance between consumption and investment spending by government, why is this important? And how can the student fee issue be resolved in that context?
Well, you see, this sets the framework because, as the Minister, I think, to some extent regrets, that there's been a very substantial allocation now in terms of the settlement with the public sector unions as to what they have now got. It's supposed to be 7%, but in the end it comes out more like 10 or perhaps even 11%. Now that absorbs a large part of what we call consumption spending, when in fact you want more emphasis on investment spending. That's where the growth comes from. Unlike China, which has to translate itself from investment to consumption, we face the opposite challenge. We really got to shift it. Now, in the light of the whole issue of the university fees and so forth, and I understand there is a committee now in the Treasury that's looking at it, what can you reshuffle within those priorities so that you can meet what the grievances are in the short term, but also restructure the whole way you finance education in the longer term? It's quite clear from the protests that the existing formula is simply no longer adequate. It's not yielding the answers, it's yielding a lot of grievances.
Now, the Minister also mentioned that he does not foresee a downgrade by the ratings agencies. Some would suggest that the rating agencies are very poor and very standard. Your take on that?
Well, I think, I think we must sometimes take them with a pinch of salt, but they are important. And they do try to bring their own mind to bear on the economic prospects of a country like South Africa. And the three main ones don't always agree, and that's a good thing, because there is always room for some difference of interpretation as to what some of the trends are. If you see the budget as very much a sort of holding operation for a year or so, pending certain other decisions, pending hopefully higher growth if we can get it moving, then I think we have been able to buy time. I think it's important to be able to buy time, and I'm hoping that we will be given that time so that we are put on notice. There are some things we have to get on with in order to get that growth rate up, that the Minister says all roads eventually, whether it's employment or tax revenues or whatever it may be, all roads lead through a higher growth rate.
30 seconds, Professor, your message to South Africans.
I would just sum up by saying that given the fact that we want to get this economy right, given the whole student issue, the two issues are really cohesion and leadership for all stakeholders if we're going to turn this situation around.
Professor Parsons, in our pep talk, as usual, thank you so much. That was Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University Business School in our weekly wrap of the business and economic news. Over to you, Tsetsi Monari, with your weather forecast.
So let's have a look at this weather. So we'll start by looking at your rainfall forecast. Looks like we're expecting some of it towards the eastern side of South Africa, particularly for KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape province, and definitely towards Mpumalanga. There is a chance of rain, but of concern is those possibilities of high fire danger towards the central parts, particularly for the Northwest province, some parts of the Northern Cape, and also you'll see temperatures are expected to be quite high for the Western Cape province. That is because of the heat wave and the high fire danger that we're expecting along those parts. Your rainfall is expected to be just isolated towards the northern part of Southern Africa, to a place such as Zambia, as well as over Tanzania, maybe even into Angola. The southern part of Angola should expect a small chance of rain. And then for the east, again, up to 30% chance of rain is expected towards Gauteng, Mpumalanga province. It will trickle down along the coastal part of KwaZulu-Natal. Your temperatures are going to be quite high for a place such as Pretoria. 32 degrees towards the Union Building, so it is expected to be quite a hot day. And then along the western interior again, Kimberley at 33, temperatures will peak into some of the lower 40s for Vredendal. That's all because of that heat wave that we're experiencing. Even Cape Town is quite hot, just around 32 degrees. But then clear conditions are expected for much of the Western Cape. Look out for strong winds around 55 kilometers an hour along the west coast. So those could be quite dangerous for surfing, in fact, if you're going there. Luderitz, 33, sunny skies for much of the northern part of Namibia, 37 towards Oshakati. If you're moving into the central part of Botswana, temperatures also just into the upper 30s towards the western side. The eastern side are looking a lot better, including Zimbabwe with partly cloudy skies. And temperatures for places such as Harare, 29 degrees, 36 for Kariba, rainy weather towards Mozambique with Nampula, 31 degrees. And in the southern part of Mozambique, that's where you also see a bit of change, as clouds for Maputo are expected, as well as over Shashai. Temperatures there just between 26 and 27 degrees. That's where I leave it for the weather. Good luck to the Springboks for tomorrow, but do stay tuned. There'll be more here on SABC News.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015. Let's do this.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time here this Friday, the 23rd of October 2015. The weekend is here, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. Students to embark on mass action in Pretoria, and we'll keep you updated on the latest as it unfolds in Pretoria. That is your big story this hour. Now, before we go to that big story, let's go over to Kendall Makamati to find out what's happening in the sports news this hour. Kendall.
Well, thank you very much, Elvis. If we do have time to do the sports, we do know there's a big story unfolding all over the country. We're going to be talking Springboks, everything about the Springboks and their semi-final tomorrow. So I'm going to leave it right there if we do the sports. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. We'll take a break right now and we'll be back right after that.
An ancient culture carried to these shores a lifetime ago, fusing, merging, growing to transcend lines, cultures and sound, embodied in a voice that speaks to you without forgetting. Do you listen to it? Lotus FM shared the experience.
It is important for everyone to know food safety practices and make sure that their food is prepared safely from farm to the plate.
Who ensures that there's compliance?
In terms of all the abattoirs, they have to be registered. So when they are being registered, they are actually audited fully to make sure that the structural requirements as well as the hygiene requirements are met.
Most bacteria and viruses cannot withstand the normal cooking temperatures that we use to cook our food.
The bigger retailers cannot be seen as being insensitive to the food safety requirements.
There are many consumers that actually go shopping with a cooler box and ice packs so that they don't break the cold chain, because a few hours outside the temperature that it should be already shortens the shelf life of that product.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Our top story this hour, hundreds of students who have gathered at the Union buildings in Pretoria are attempting to break down the barriers. Police are trying to stop them. And let's find out what's going on there now with our reporter Tumalo Mushlauli, who is live at the Union buildings. Good morning to you again, Tumalo. What is happening there? Tumahula, can you hear me?
Thank you very much. Well, the mood here at the Union Buildings South Lawns has just exploded from the earlier tranquil environment that was evident here earlier this morning when I spoke to you live into news. About a few moments ago, hordes of students came rushing in, and police, as you can see in the shot in front of me, police's riot team had to come in and intervene and close the gate at the most northern part of the South Lawns. Now, beyond this point, behind this gate where these police officers are standing, is the Union buildings, and I can tell you that the police's tactical response and riot, anti-riot units are all here, and they're looking very, very tense. Some of the students tried to barge their way in forcefully, chanting, "Fees must fall." And at this particular moment, senior officials from the police's crowd control unit are trying to appeal to students to move back from beyond the fence, because officers are on high alert, and they are basically warning that they will not tolerate any disruptive behavior, and they will have to basically push the student back using force if the students do not heed to their demands, because the officers are saying the protesters with the "Fees Must Fall" campaign must be disciplined. A part of this group of students started chanting "discipline, discipline, discipline," basically appealing to their comrades here to be calm and to listen to officials, because I think that they have the fear amongst themselves that this particular protest or gathering has the potential to be derailed and descend into chaos, which will then drag away from their demands and from their struggle. So you have some division among students. I have to say that looking further beyond this perimeter fence in front of me where the police are, students continue to pour in. And I don't know if you can hear this. I'm going to try to turn the mic. You can hear chants of "discipline, discipline." These are students sitting on top of the tree there, appealing to their comrades to basically calm down and allow this gathering to happen. Behind me in the Union buildings, leaders of the "Fees Must Fall" movement have been in talks with the presidency, and they have delivered what their demands are. And speaking to some of the students here, many are saying that this is an issue of financial exclusion, and they had raised concerns that they are very concerned that certain parts of the "Fees Must Fall" movement would politicize it and try to hijack what has been an organic uprising of students for their own political gain. And I think this is what is starting to happen, particularly here by the perimeter fence at the most northern end of the South Lawns. I have to say, though, that officers have been rather patient and expressing a lot of restraint, because they have not engaged the students. Instead, they are appealing to the students to calm down and back away from the fence. With that, it's back to you in the studio. This is the situation right now here at the Union buildings.
Thank you so much, Tomohole Moshlali. He is at the Union Buildings. We're also going to try and get hold of our other reporter, Griselda Lewis, who's in the bus, as well as find an update also from Sipho Steerman to give you the latest. Meanwhile, the University of the Witwatersrand management is strongly considering pushing back the exams following the protest actions over the last 2 weeks. The university says it's looking at options to make up for lost time and to ensure that the students complete the academic year. At the university, students gathered at the Senate House to study, complete their assignments and hold mock lectures. These students shut down the university, demanding the fee increases to be scrapped.
Protesting by day, hitting the books by night. These students brought classes to a standstill last week, but are adamant their education is first priority.
We want people to study. We want education. We want brilliant students to come out of here. And there are brilliant students here who are studying inside. There are also lecturers and tutors and alumni who are busy tutoring people because we know exams are coming up. But what we don't want are brilliant students who are excluded for financial reasons.
With exams a few weeks away, the students gather together to help each other.
There are lecturers that actually do come and sit with students and lecture them and tutor and ask their pertinent questions where they don't understand. So in as much as we might have lost time per se, but studying has not stopped.
The university says once a solution has been found, the next step will be to plan when exams will be.
We'll have a consultation with academic and students with one aim, which is how do we recover as one option time that's lost where it can be done to teach certain things. But also you don't have to actually test everything that's been taught. You can actually test that which has been taught. But you have to look at that course by course, case by case, and to make sure that we can also extend the term.
The Fees Must Fall campaign has garnered support from campuses across the country. Today, students are marching on the Union Buildings in Pretoria, where the president is set to meet with student leaders. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Wits University.
Now, students are taking their protest hashtag fees must fall to the highest authority in the country. Hundreds of students are on their way to participate in a student march to the Union Buildings. Students plan to protest there ahead of President Jacob Zuma's meeting with management and students with regards to the university fee increases. Our SABC reporter Griselda Lewis is on a bus with the students. A very good morning to you once again, Griselda. What is the mood like on the bus? The last time we talked, you were just leaving Johannesburg.
Well, a very good morning to you once again, Elvis. Well, the visuals that you are seeing at the moment, we're on the bus that left from Wits University. We're on our way to the Union Buildings. We're just passing the Midrand area at the moment. The visuals you're seeing of some of the buses that are way ahead of us there. There are many others that are behind us at this point. We've counted plus minus about 30 of these buses. But let's just chat to some of the people on the bus at the moment. Let me chat to the bus driver. The bus driver who is ferrying us to the Union Buildings this morning. He has 2 children who attend school at the University of Johannesburg. Baba, thank you very much for your time. You know, you're ferrying us to the Union Buildings this morning, but you were telling me that you can identify with the struggle of these students. You've got 2 children at the University of Johannesburg. What is it like for you as a parent to have to pay for these fees that are being said are exorbitant?
It is very difficult for me as a parent to live because it's very expensive to let your children attend school in the university. So as we don't have enough money to take our children to school. We are very suffering a lot. And this heavy increase of the school fees and so much is going to cripple us because at the end of the day, the children will attend school, but we won't have anything to eat at home because it's too much for us because we don't earn so much so that we can manage to pay the school fees. And yet the government is keep on increasing the school fees. So I don't know how are we going to pay the school fees because at the end of the time, you'll have to have 1 million to let your children attend school. Where are we going to get millions whilst we are bus drivers? Thank you very much.
You were saying that you understand the struggle of the students and that you may be driving them to the union buildings today, but you're also going there in your personal capacity. You want something to be done.
Yeah, please let the government do something. We don't need the government to increase any money for 2016 because we are even battle now for 2016. We are going to be very difficult for us.
All right. Thank you very much, Baba. Let's move now, Elvis, a bit to the students themselves. It's a bit shaky here. You'll understand that we're live inside this moving bus at the moment. We'll try to maneuver with the bus at the moment. We try and get our camera person, Tulo Munare, to come with us here. Here are the students singing and dancing inside the bus as we're heading towards the union buildings. Many of the songs that you will hear are Solomoni. Very often here, you know, at these protests, as students are saying that they simply cannot afford these fees that are, you know, that were proposed to increase next year. Let's have a word with you, young man. You've been singing here all morning. You're saying no to the increase in these fees. Tell us a bit about your struggle. What is your personal struggle?
My personal struggle, my degree takes 3 years. And in first year, I took out a loan. The second year, I tried again applying for a loan, but it was denied. So now it's me and my parents together struggling to pay the fees for this year. Now they're already talking about increasing the fees for next year. I haven't even finished paying the fees for this year. So I don't know how I'm going to afford it. But the reason I'm fighting and actually involved in the struggle is because I want to fight for the fees. I cannot afford the fees. And I have siblings which also want to come to varsity, but how are they going to get here if I myself cannot get out?
All right, thank you very much for your time there. That's basically the sentiment that is being shared on this moving bus here, Eben. You see a lot of the children, many of the students singing there in anticipation and waiting to hear if there'll be anything tangible that will come from the talks that President Jacob Zuma is having with executives from the universities as well as the students. But that's all we will have for you at this point. We'll update you once again once we get to the union buildings or a bit closer to the union buildings or when we arrive in Pretoria.
Thank you, Griselda. That was Griselda Lewis live on a bus on her way to the march in Pretoria. Now, students, as we indicated earlier, from various universities will gather at the Burgers Park in Pretoria CBD before they march to the union buildings. Earlier, we spoke to our reporter there. Let's join him again, Sipho Stierman. He is at that gathering and they're marching with the students right now. A very good morning to you, Sipho. Can you tell us what's happening there now?
Well, good morning to you, Elvis, once again. I'm currently in the middle of the 3-kilometer march with the students. We are heading to the union buildings. We've got various groups of students. They went in different stages and in different groups. And right now I am in the middle of this march. And you can see the students are excited. Another group is ahead that's singing. And I've got the students here with me. Just tell us, what do you hope that the president will announce today after meeting with student leaders?
Anything regarding the institution fees. Fees must fall. Thank you.
Fees must fall! Fees must fall! Fees must fall! Fees must fall!
All right, well, you can hear it for yourselves. The students are saying that fees must fall, and that's the only thing that they are interested in, and they're hoping that the president will announce just that zero fee increment for the year 2016.
Well, thank you so much for that update, and we'll keep you posted right here on Channel 404 here on Newsroom as to the latest developments there. Let's now go to the middle of Africa. Voters in East Africa's most populous country, Tanzania, will head to the polls on Sunday. That election is expected to be the tightest in the country's history. The opposition hopes to end the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi. 54 years in power they are.
A people not known for violence and intimidation. Not even this most contested election, it would seem, is about to change that. But then an election where there's no mocking and jeering can be downright boring. It was the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi that threw the first salvo, attacking the main opposition's presidential candidate.
We did not pick him as our candidate because voters told us that he would personify everything that people say is wrong with CCM. And now you have a situation where the opposition is running away from a very important issue that is of ethics.
If anyone can come with a strong evidence, Lowassa was involved intentionally, and it was himself, not the order from his boss, we can do otherwise.
Come Sunday, both parties insist it won't just be a win, but a clean sweep.
So we expected that this will be a stiff competition, but our victory was never in doubt.
We do not hope to lose. At all. I don't see nowhere. I see nowhere we are going to lose.
Vuyo Mvogo, SABC News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Now, a fleet of buses ferrying scores of students have made their way to the union buildings in Pretoria. Student leaders are to meet the president, Jacob Zuma, over the higher learning institutions' fee hikes. We now cross live to our reporter Mzwandile Mbeje to give us an update there. That fleet of buses that's carrying those scores of students to the union buildings. A very good morning to you, Mzwai. Can you tell us what's going on there now?
A very good morning to you, Elvis. I'm not sure whether you can see the picture. I'm not on the picture right now because I'm trying to give you the picture of the president who is just walking into that meeting that he's going to be having with all stakeholders. Right now, it's after 11 o'clock. The meeting was scheduled to happen at around 10 o'clock, but the stakeholders are all here, vice chancellors and the students. So the meeting we expect very shortly to begin. So I was just trying to give you that shot. The president has literally just walked to that meeting room. So where we expect really some tangible results to come out of this meeting. You know, the students have made it very clear that anything other than the no increment will be allowed. So we hope this meeting, after perhaps 2 hours, will be able to resolve this question. And after the meeting, Elvis, though not confirmed, the president is likely to then communicate that outcome either through a press briefing or the joint press briefing, or maybe later on the president may decide, depending on the kind of decision that will have been agreed upon, the president may decide to update the nation.
What is your sort of feel around this? Is this a reasonable expectation from the students that the president might come out after this particular meeting to say there would be no fee increases for 2016?
It's very difficult at this stage to really guess or to speculate. But given the nature of the situation and the utterances that the president has been saying in the past few days, I am suspecting that maybe some sort of a moratorium may be agreed upon whilst other avenues are being explored.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier when we spoke to our reporter there was an indication that the students wanted to try to barge through one of the entrances there. Do we expect more trouble a little bit later?
I don't think so, because you know how the union buildings is structured. I think they would be able to handle the situation. I mean, even now, we tried to go and check if there was anything very serious, but it looks like the students are by and large on the lawns. So what I can say, Elvis, I know you'd want to ask a little bit more, but the president has just walked into the meeting, and we should be part of that meeting in terms of getting the pictures and who is there. So I would like to really return back to you so that I can be able to continue with other program.
Zwandile, thank you so much for that update. That was Zwandile Mbeje at the Union Buildings, waiting for that meeting to take place. As you heard him, he's going into that meeting. Let's now go back to some of the current news stories. A hunter has been mauled to death by 2 lions at a private game park near Mashishimale Tsupe village outside Phalaborwa in Limpopo. The police spokesperson, Deneo Sekotori, says that 5 men were allegedly hunting illegally on a farm when they came across the lions, which then charged them. 2 dogs also died during the attack. Police say they discovered the remains and torn pieces of bloodied clothes. Police say that 3 of the hunters had apparently climbed trees, while the other 2, including the deceased, ran into different directions with the dogs. The lions then caught up with the 2 men and the dogs and mauled them. Let's now take a break, and we'll be right back after that.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Matric, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Now, earlier we heard from our reporter that hundreds of students who have gathered at the union buildings in Pretoria are attempting to break down the barriers, and the police are trying to stop them. We now cross back to our reporter, Tumaole Mashlauli, who's on the scene. Tumaole, what is currently going on?
Standing by. Well, the situation here at the union buildings, rather the atmosphere, remains very, very tense. It is slightly lower in temperature, if I can use that analogy, than it was a few moments ago, where students rolled in and ran in their numbers, charging the perimeter fence at the south lawns. This is the fence basically that separates the southern lawns at the union buildings from the union buildings themselves. Police are out here in their numbers in riot gear, and I think officers have basically showed a lot of restraint. Students earlier were threatening to push the fence over. Even now as we speak, you can see visible damage where students were trying to force their way past the perimeter fence. Some students have now perched on trees around the perimeter fence, and they're carrying placards reading "Fees must fall by 10%," and others are saying, "Police, we are your children." And there are various political organizations, student organizations represented here, and the numbers continue to swell. I can tell you that if you look south towards the further end of the south lawns, where the Pretoria CBD begins, basically, there are still students pouring in their numbers, and they are a lively bunch. I can tell you, they are singing and they are chanting and they are dancing and they are running around at the south lawns. And I think police have done well to defuse the situation, which was potentially explosive, because earlier students were demanding to be allowed in so that they could take their demands straight to the door of the union buildings, to the presidency, something which would not be allowed. As we speak as well, behind me, behind the fence here, police continue to come in to reinforce their colleagues. There is a line which they are standing in, decked out in their riot gear, and you can see on their waist some are carrying canisters of stun grenades. The media is now officially been locked in behind the perimeter fence, as police are saying it is not safe to go beyond the point where the students are, because they cannot guarantee the media safety. So this is the vantage point that we have, but I can tell you that the temperature has increased significantly here at the south lawns of the union buildings, as well as the atmosphere. It can only be described as very electric, as alive. The students here gathering amongst themselves, singing, chanting, dancing. So it is very lively. However, they will not be allowed to head towards the union buildings itself. That is something that police are adamant, and officials from the presidency will not happen. Student leaders, I can tell you at this particular moment, had been meeting with officials and representatives from the presidency to bring their demands to the union buildings and to the presidency. That meeting has been going on behind closed doors. At this stage, we're not getting any indication what is being discussed, but students here as well have been demanding to find out what has happened. I think that as far as they are concerned, they do not have the patience to wait, and they are not willing to wait. They came here expecting to have feedback immediately. Of course, politically, this is not how it works. A lot of them were buoyed on, it seems, by visuals they saw when students converged onto Lutuli House, and the scenes that played out there, where students demanded to be addressed by senior ANC leadership. Of course, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe coming down and addressing the students and also being addressed by them. It was quite a confrontational scene that played out right across there at Luthuli House earlier. So now here things have simmered down a bit. The students continue to sing, continue to chant, continue to taunt police officers, some of them yelling shoot, 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 but police officers are on high alert, keeping the law and order. And I think the earlier exuberance of the students trying to force their way in has really died down as they've realized that the security here at the union buildings will not budge to their demands. So now they've just resorted to gathering amongst themselves and waving their placards, singing their songs and dancing and chanting and marching around the South Lawns. Looking out beyond the South Lawns, I can still see more and more students pouring in. It's very hard at this stage to estimate exactly how many students for the Fees Must Fall campaign have gathered for this particular event and particular gathering here at the union buildings at the seat of government in Pretoria, the capital. So this is the situation on the ground as we speak to you. With that, I'll hand back to you in studio.
That's our reporter on the ground there. Tensions remain high at the union buildings with those students, and you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned here on Newsroom and other programs following this program to know what's happening in the world of news. Now, the Minister of Sports, Fikile Mbalula, has described the former boss of the 2013 AFCON and CHAN tournaments, Mvuzo Mbebe, as a selfless leader. He was speaking at his memorial service in Kempton Park, east of Johannesburg. Mbebe, a former SABC group executive for content, passed away on Sunday night following a long battle with colon cancer.
A giant in South African sport has fallen. Dignitaries attended in their numbers to bid farewell to the man described as a great leader. Mbebe, a former SABC executive, also made his mark as a boss of the 2013 AFCON and 2014 CHAN tournaments. He was awarded Steve Tshwete Lifetime Achievement Award in 2013.
I've known Mvuzo for a very long time as a comrade in the struggle, but I've known him quite closely in the portfolio I was deployed of sports and recreation in South Africa.
Instead of mourning, let us celebrate the life of Mvuzo Mbebe. He left only for 52 years. Yes, there are people who left to be 100 years. I'm much older than him. I'm 61 years old. But the contribution of that young man, not only to sports development in South Africa, not only to sport development in the region, Region 5, but on the entire African continent.
He spent most of his life as a sports administrator, even though he was a qualified pharmacist. He leaves behind his wife, 2 children, mother and 2 siblings.
Mvuzo will be most remembered for his role in sports. He will be laid to rest on Tuesday in his home in Umzimkhulu. Luthando Masana, SABC News, Kempton Park.
South Africans will not be allowed to smoke in public anywhere in the country. That is if the Health Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, has his way. The Health Minister says government will soon introduce a total ban on smoking and advertising of tobacco and alcohol in the country. Dr. Motsoaledi was speaking at the launch of a 24-hour health television channel in Alexandra, north of Johannesburg. The new channel, the Good Life Network, goes live on air on the 1st of December this year. He says smoking increases diseases and puts the health system under pressure, with more patients needing care when they need or where they could have prevented it.
Amate, after all that hectic news from Fees Must Fall and hashtag union buildings, we talk sports now. Now, taking the hype of the Rugby World Cup another notch, Lord Jager was undergoing a late fitness test later today to determine whether he'll be able to play or not, and Brad Thorne, a former All Black and World Cup 2011 winner, spoke about the upcoming colossus of a game between the Springboks and the All Blacks. Let's take a listen.
I think it's implanted in your DNA. From a young age, you know, enemy number one,
is the All Blacks, and they know enemy number one is South Africa. It's just how it is. But yeah, we don't fear them. I think there's a mutual respect between the two nations, but we don't fear them. We play against them a lot. We know what to expect. We know it's a big challenge, but we're up for it and we're ready for Saturday. I think they have a world-class team. You don't play for New Zealand if you're not a world-class player. Same with the Springboks. I think you don't play for the Springboks if you're not a world-class player. So I think it's going to be a massive, massive game. A lot of hard impact and a lot of, I think, exciting rugby as well, if the weather holds up. So yeah, hopefully we can make it a good festival for everyone, and hopefully the Springboks come out on top.
Blacks to keep their feet on the ground. It helps having a whole heap of senior players that have been there before. You've got guys who have been at World Cup since 2003, Richie and Dan, and 07 where we fell away, and then 2011. So there's a heap of experience there, over 1,000 test caps in the starting side, I think. I think it won't just be from the coaches, but the senior players will lead the way on that, hoping to be fizzing on Saturday and bring everything you've got. And as the game wears on, can they stay with us? High intensity rugby. So it's all about building pressure this stage of the World Cup, because there's no Monday if you don't get the job done.
New Zealand are still taking it just one game at a time at the Rugby World Cup in England, despite an impressive 62-13 dropping of France in their quarter-final last weekend. Only South Africa, who they'll face in London tomorrow, now stand in their way of reaching their second successive final. Right, now we'll hopefully be able to play that clip for you a little later, and other bulletins coming up later today. Now, the South Africa Under-17 national team played to a 1-1 draw against the 10-man Korea DPR in the FIFA Under-17 World Cup Group E clash last night. Both goals came from penalties in the first half, as Amajimbos won their first ever point at a FIFA World Cup finals. Amajimbos now have a mountain to climb if they're to exit the group stages after also losing their opening match. Let's take a quick look at the highlights from that match.
Mbata. Referee's given the penalty. Foul by Ri Kuk-hyun. And out comes a card as well. The environs. Here comes Mukumela. That's emphatic. That's 1-0 to South Africa. Oh, that went through Dalala's legs. That won't please him. The referee's awarded another penalty kick. Kim Wee-song. Here's Kim Wee-song, and he finds the net as well.
Now we cut our sports bulletin short to go back to the big story of the day. Our reporter, Lerato Tipa, is in Port Elizabeth. Over to you, Lerato. Lerato, do you hear me? This is Kendall, Auckland Park. Right. It seems as if Lerato is not with us just yet. We can hear the audio from behind him. It seems like there's singing, quite a throng behind him, I'm sure. And I do believe that we're going to keep trying to get hold of Lerato. But in the meantime, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Good. Point.
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
Now, Kendall Mahamata was trying to link to Lerapo Tipa in PE a little bit earlier. Let's see if we can get hold of her on that big story of the day. Lerato, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Okay. Well, a very good afternoon. We're broadcasting live from the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, where lectures here have literally come to a halt. If you can just look behind me, students are continuing barricading the main entrance to both the North and the South campus. Just to give you guys a recap of how we got here today. Yesterday, the VC, Derek Swartz, was supposed to meet students at the stadium here at the varsity. The students then defied that and went to a different location. And the students are saying they're going to wait until the VC comes to them. They're saying that this is their grievance. And if the VC wants to speak to them, he must meet them at their term. We also have just heard that they're going to officially march in about an hour or so to the Taking the Legislature to the People, which is the Vista campus, where the Premier Phumulo Masualle is supposed to speak. So after this, they plan to march there, disrupt proceedings there until the Premier Phumulo Masualle addresses them.
Seems like it's very hectic right now. If you can look at the numbers, how many people are there round about? If you can give us a ballpark figure. Well, it looks like we've lost Lerato there. But that's an update, and as you know, the protest is continuing. Let's now take a break, and we'll be right back after that.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Cut! Boy! Sit!
Get behind Rugby World Cup 2015 on SABC.
It is important for everyone to know food safety practices and make sure that their food is prepared safely from farm to the plate.
Who ensures that there's compliance?
In terms of all the abattoirs, they have to be registered. So when they are being registered, they are actually audited fully to make sure that the structural requirements as well as the hygiene requirements are met.
Most bacteria and viruses cannot withstand the normal cooking temperatures that we use to cook our food.
The bigger retailers cannot be seen as being insensitive to the food safety requirements.
There are many consumers that actually go shopping with a cooler box and ice packs so that they don't break the cold chain, because a few hours outside the temperature that it should be already shortens the shelf life of that product.
Join me on Health Talk every Saturday morning between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. as we unpack current health stories.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Siphumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Just a reminder of an earlier story, the University of Witwatersrand management is strongly considering pushing back the exams following the protest action over the last 2 weeks. The university says it's looking at options to make up for lost time and to ensure that the students complete the academic year. At the university, students gathered at the Senate House to study, to complete assignments and to hold mock lectures. These students shut down the university, demanding the fee increases were scrapped.
Protesting by day, hitting the books by night. These students brought classes to a standstill last week, but are adamant their education is first priority.
We want people to study. We want education. We want brilliant students to come out of here. And there are brilliant students here who are studying inside. There are also lecturers and tutors and alumni who are busy tutoring people because we know exams are coming up. But what we don't want are brilliant students who are excluded for financial reasons.
With exams a few weeks away, the students gather together to help each other.
There are lecturers that actually do come and sit with students and lecture them and tutor and ask their pertinent questions where they don't understand. So in as much as we might have lost time per se, but studying has not stopped.
The university says once a solution has been found, the next step will be to plan when exams will be.
We'll have a consultation with academic and students with one aim, which is how do we recover as one option time that's lost where it can be done to teach certain things. But also you don't have to actually test everything that's been taught. You can actually test that which has been taught. But you have to look at that course by course, case by case, and to make sure that we can also extend the term.
The Fees Must Fall campaign has garnered support from campuses across the country. Today, students are marching on the union buildings in Pretoria, where the president is set to meet with student leaders. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Wits University.
Staying with the top story for the day, in Durban, Blaine Herman is standing by to give us an update what's happening there. Very good afternoon, or good morning to you, Blaine.
Yeah, very good morning, Elvis. Good morning, everybody. We're live from Durban. Indeed, the Fees Must Fall campaign is gaining momentum here in Durban. Thousands of students have taken to the streets to voice their concerns. They want to add their voice to the national campaign of calling for no increases next year, 0%. That's what they're calling for. Now, I had a chat with a number of university staff. They said there have been some disruptions at universities and University of Technologies. I spoke to Alan Khan from the DUT, and he says examinations had to be suspended yesterday, as well as today. UKZN, they've suspended their academic programs for now. So the students have gathered this morning at Curry's Fountain. They're making their way down now to Pixie Kaseme Street. It's one of the busiest streets in the Durban CBD, and the original plan was to actually get to the ANC offices in Durban. It's a few kilometers away from Curry's Fountain. Now, we somewhere in the middle. We've just gone a bit ahead of the crowd, and they stopped at Durban City Hall, so they should be making their way soon down where I am actually standing. But there are a number of students that have come to the fore and come to the front, and well, they want their voices to be heard. Let's try to speak to some of them. Hi, good morning to you. What's your name?
My name is Tabitha Mzolemo.
Tell me, why are you here this morning?
I'm here because I didn't write my exam. I'm supposed to write my first paper. Here is my final year this year.
So which which institution do you belong?
I belong to teaching, UNISA institution. I'm doing teaching.
So you went this morning to write and it was disrupted?
Yes, I went to write, and after a few minutes, the people come and disrupt us. We didn't write.
How do you feel about that? Do you support this campaign, Fees Must Fall campaign?
Yes, I support this campaign because I'm coming from poor background.
Yeah. You know, just give us a sense of what this campaign means to students like you, what it means to parents.
Oh, this campus student like me, because I'm coming from a poor background, it's right, because other parents are not working. That is why they're supposed to come on the road and fight for this thing.
Are you willing to stay the course? I know there was talk about a 6% cap. Are you willing to accept that? Is there room for negotiation from students? What is the sense you're getting?
No, I don't need 6%, I need 0% because we're coming from poor background.
Yeah. Is that unanimous among students? 6%, no negotiations, 0%? Elvis, there you have it. It seems to be unanimous here. 0% increase in terms of the 2016 increment next year. We haven't heard from universities in KwaZulu-Natal in terms of if they are actually going to implement an increase and what that increment would be. So we'll keep our ears to the ground and find out more. We'll be keeping you in touch with what's happening on the ground here. The march down West Street, formerly West Street, Pixley Kaseme, heading to the ANC offices. Stay tuned to SABC News for more.
Well, thank you, Blaine. Now, that's the latest update from the protest in Durban. We've also taken you to PE and right here in Johannesburg. And we'll keep you updated throughout the rest of this day here on Channel 404. Gibbon?
Yeah, there's a big story happening. We'll be right on top of it for the rest of the day. Stay tuned to the channel. We'll bring you all the updates from the Fees Must Fall March to the Union buildings right after this.
Ciao for now. We'll see you on Monday.
ABC News, we report, contextualize.